Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and joining me tonight is a panel to talk about the first 3 episodes now of Daredevil Born Again. We've got Austin the Day Ghost.
We've united the Fantastic Four to talk about Daredevil.
Yes, we have. And I think this is the exact panel we had for Penguin, is it not?
No, we're just missing Jason.
Oh, that's right. Jason was here for that. And we've got John. I want to say John before Robert because John's first appearance on the channel was last time, so he's now elevated to a new rank.
You know, it's crazy. I've been here twice now.
Two-timing John, that's what we call him.
He's only been here twice, but somehow countless hours. We're joking. If you missed Penguin, you have no idea what we're talking about. And also, Robert, why am I here, Wild? Hi, Robert.
Hello. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm glad to be here.
It's great to see you guys. We had a snafu last night. We were attempting to broadcast. It did not work. I don't know why. It was an absolute nightmare. But we are here now, and we have a good connection, and everything seems to be working okay. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this. And a whole other episode has dropped since then. Did everybody get a chance to see that?
I did,
yeah.
Because it just dropped like 2 hours ago. So I appreciate you guys doing the homework. This was supposed to be how we felt about just on the first 2 episodes that were dropped because they came out at the same time. So we would have just done the pilot, the first episode. I can't say pilot, especially with this show, because the first episode was like the last thing they made. But we'll talk about all of that. But anyway, we now are going to be talking about the first third of the season. This is a 9-episode season. We already have the first 3 episodes. Originally, it was supposed to be an 18-episode, more episodic kind of season, and the thing has been retooled quite a bit. It's now broken up into 2 seasons. At first, it sounded like we were going to get 9 and 9, and now it looks like it's going to be 9 and 8 for whatever reason. And again, we'll get into some of the reasons that ended up happening a little bit later. But Retooled Show was originally supposed to be more of its own thing, a standalone thing, more ambiguous and vague as I always thought it would be as to whether it was even connected to that show. And now it is just a straight up revival series, basically, of the Netflix show. And we're going to do our regular sign flip. I'm going to let John start tonight so that we get to hear from him within the first 50 minutes of the program. And we're going to do our regular kind of round-robin, best thing, worst thing, overall basic thoughts about the show. We'll be spoiler-free at the start, and then we'll do spoilers after that. I don't know how many of our audience tonight will have had time to watch that 3rd episode, so especially stay away from anything remotely spoilery about that episode, guys. But just be careful not to bring up too much until we get to the spoiler section. And folks in the live comments right now, try not to ask spoilery questions until we get to the spoiler section. But as always, feel free to ask questions and make sure that aspects of the show get talked about that you want to hear us chat about. And you can guarantee that that happens via a super chat in any dollar amount. But you can also leave regular comments with your questions and ideas, and we will try to hit a few of those as we move along. John, your first impressions, sir.
So I managed to go into this mostly blind. Like I knew some of the production issues, but I avoided trailers and everything. So going into this, I wasn't sure what to expect, but overall,
oh, he said that entirely unironically. All right, well, anyway. You went in blind, John.
You got it.
Yeah, pun intended. Because I'm going to take credit for that. But no, overall, I was pretty happy with it. I think the pilot is the worst of the 3 episodes so far, but I'm enjoying it.
What is your best and worst thing?
Thanks for that rousing analysis, John. What's your best thing, worst thing?
He's new here. It's fine. It's fine. He's
my
new
second
here.
time. I'm new here.
I just have to point out that he's wearing a red shirt. I just got to point that out.
John is here for the 2nd time and the last time.
Yeah,
but countless hours.
I'm trying to go out on a high note. So my best thing is just is Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio. Ugh. Sorry, I can't talk tonight either. I think they're both really good, even when they're not given the best material to work with. Like, they haven't missed a beat. Worst thing is some of the choices in the pilot I don't really like. I won't get into it because we're not in spoilers yet, but there's some stuff in the pilot that I think was a bad idea, and it hasn't gotten better.
I imagine some of us will be in agreement with those things, and I think I know what at least one of them is. But let's hear next from Robert.
Oh, okay. So yeah, coming into the show, like most people here, I was a massive fan of the Netflix series and was pretty gutted when that was canceled, when that whole deal fell apart. I personally wanted a season 4 for a long time. And then years later, this finally happens. But as we knew going in, it was not going to be a season 4. It was going to be more of a reboot, like you said. And then later got retooled. So it's this weird hybrid of trying to forge its own path, but also be a direct continuation, which I am more in favor. Just speaking for myself, regardless how I may feel about the execution or certain choices, I'm glad that this is a direct continuation of that, and not a full reboot. That's just me. Best thing so far, like John, I want to say Charlie Cox, because he is so committed to this role. He's so passionate about it. He really wants to get this thing right. And every time he's on screen, I'm having a good time because he is giving it his all. But beyond that, my other best thing, I guess, will be, to its credit, I think the tone is there. If you're worried about Marvel humor or this feeling too MCU-ish, I don't have that problem at all so far. I think the tone is mostly there, regardless of how I feel about some writing choices. So best thing for me is Charlie Cox and tone. Worst thing, also gonna kind of hard not to echo what John's saying of, like, my worst thing, I guess, is the setup for the story. The catalyst, the inciting incident, whatever you want to call it. Whether this was a direct continuation of that show or not, I'm still scratching my head as to why this was our starting place for this season. If this was a full-on reboot and just Daredevil and MCU and the Netflix show isn't canon, I'm even more confused why this started the way it did and why this is the story they chose to lead with. I think that's very strange. Though there are aspects of it I think I do like and I think are well executed, but to kind of simplify it, there are things in the pilot, at the very least, I think are rushed, that we just should have spent more time on, where you're both continuing the Netflix show and trying to introduce all these new characters and pave this way forward, and it's just rushed, and it's like, you got to take the time to set the board before you flip it, you know? And I think we're still kind of 3 episodes in, I think we're still kind of finding our footing with this new direction and these new characters. But as to how I'm personally feeling about it so far, though, I've got a couple Blu-rays. I've got No Way Home for my red, because spoiler alert, Daredevil's in this movie, and red for, green for the Ben Affleck.
Oh,
Daredevil.
double red! You must really hate the show.
Oh God,
Robert's colorblind. John's blind and Robert's colorblind.
Well, it's important that the show has representation. Like that. That's why we're here. Yeah, so I'm kind of teetering on the edge. How I feel 3 episodes in, I'm gonna give it a light green. I personally am feeling it so far. I am gonna keep going. I do like it more than I dislike it personally, but I'm with John where I think the pilot much more of a mixed bag for me personally. Though again, there are things I do like about it when we get into spoilers. Episode 2 might be my favorite. It's hard to say. Again, none of these episodes I think are great. The show isn't as great as fans of the old show want it to be. I'm still trying to kind of review this thing on its own terms, but it's hard not to do the compare and contrast game. Like, coming off of Captain America Brave New World, I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with this, Cap, but I think this is much better than that, when that was an absolute mess and a pretty big letdown. So much better than that, and most of the Disney Marvel shows, in my opinion. I think this is a big step up, but it's still not nearly as good as the Netflix show. It's not nearly as good as The Penguin, which is that timing of that's unfortunate because we just had like this brilliant, dark, mature sophisticated crime show in the Penguin, and so far this isn't nearly as good as that. But just trying to look at the thing on its own terms, I think it's okay so far. I've got pros and cons that we can get into more in spoilers, but so far I'm personally locked in. I will keep watching. I don't know how I'll feel by the end of the season, but so far I think it's okay. That's where I'm currently at on it.
Thanks, Robert. And it's also weird because we compared the Penguin favorably a lot to the first season, at least, of that original show. And for my part, I said that they were maybe tied for the best adaptations of comic material we've ever had. And so, I mean, that's a high bar to even attempt to try to meet. And a really odd timing that the very next thing the four of us are all talking about together is a revival series of that show. That we said was
a good thing,
was tied with the Penguin.
It's a good thing the showrunner did not try to compare the show to the Penguin. It's a good thing he did not come out and say that this is way more darker and way more mature. I swear, honest guys, than the Penguin.
So spoilers, everybody. He did do that. He also said that at its worst, the first show was just two guys standing around talking about what it means to be a hero, and acted like this show was going to be a lot less talk heavy and was going to be a lot more maybe action driven. I mean, he was talking a lot about just wanting to like see people do things and not just talk about them. And this last episode was a curious amount of people talking about what it means to be a hero. Austin, what did you think about the first 3 episodes of Daredevil: Born Again?
God.
Oh no!
Well, a show that hold on, a show that is also odd because its title is borrowed from the story that the 3rd season loosely adapted.
Yep.
That's kind
it would be like if we had a Batman show and then we rebooted and we used the Dark Knight Returns, because like that is like a good reboot name, but like it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just that he's reborn in the MCU, but the title doesn't even really fit so well now because now it's a revival show and it wasn't before. So anyway, what do you think, Austin?
This entire time, if you guys had Daredevil powers, you could just hear my heart beating, boom, 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 about when it was going to get to me, because oh boy. So good thing, or best thing, I will echo what you guys said. I think Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are both trying their hardest. That is a thing Cap told me that I'm referencing.
Nobody was here for that. Nobody was
here for that, but I just had to drop it.
Roger Ebert did a review did a interview with I think Charlie Rose in 1999 where he accidentally referred to Vincent D'Onofrio as Vincent D'Onofrio. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I also think the guy who plays White Dragon, and unfortunately I don't know
White
his name
Tiger?
offhand. White Tiger. I got it mixed up with Peacemaker. Yeah, with a very different character.
Hey, Austin, I don't mean to interrupt you again, but if you're going to come at this with the kind of vitriol you're about to, you need to prove to us that you saw it.
No,
I think that's really important.
Okay. Here are the levels of blindness, Cap. You have John, who is blind, Robert, who is colorblind, and me, who is face blind. So there you go. Just more blindness all around.
What about that costume? Looks like a dragon.
We saw it for like 3 seconds.
That's true.
White Tiger, who I think so far is the main thing in the show that I would say feels like it could have been in the original show. My worst thing is pretty much everything else. I think the show is genuinely awful. I think you can see the seeds. I think you can see the sewing, the stitch marks, if you will, of the reshoots in the original show that they've shoved together and tried to tie together as best as they possibly can. Every single thing that they came out and were like, oh, here are things we don't think are working, are still here. None of them are really addressed. None of them are fixed in any way. I think the first episode is incredibly rushed and blows through so many things that they need to stop and actually explain. I think episode 2 is a little bit better, but then we start the White Tiger plot with the Punisher cops, and I think everything with them is awful. Again, I like the White Tiger. I like the actor. I think he does a good job. The scenes he has with Matt in episode 3 are the best. Episode 3 in general, I would say, is the best episode so far. It's very typical. Like, I could see where it was going from like 10 minutes in. But like, it doesn't fine enough, I guess. The ending is super awkward, though. I don't think it does a good job handling that. I also think for a show that did a really good job with its action scenes in the original show, the action scenes are awful in this. Not that we have like very many to compare, but like you have one in the second episode that is horribly edited. You've one in the first episode that is their big, one take hallway fight, if you will, and it's like almost entirely CGI, and like what's not also has like a CG filter over it with the smoke and whatnot. It looks terrible. I think the tone is all over the place, and that you can see that originally it was supposed to be a little bit more comedic, and then now they want it to be a little bit darker. I actually, Robert mentioned the MCU humor thing. I think there are characters in this who are like entirely MCU humor staples in it that pop up, and that's all they speak in. There's weird lines and direction that they give D'Onofrio and Cox in places where they have it too. I don't know. I'm definitely going to be the hardest one on this, but overall, like, I think this is just awful. Cap, how did you feel?
Austin, if you keep pulling your punches like that, I'm gonna have to get somebody else, I think.
I'm sorry, I let the devil out.
I think this show has a massive identity crisis, and I think the culprit for that is that they didn't just scrap everything they had and start completely over. And I also think that they spent enough money on it, they probably couldn't afford to do that, so what do? You either put out what you have and then make a hard left turn in your second season after you've put out 18 episodes that are episodic and you might lose people and people might not like, or you try to find some way to reshoot what you can and meld it together like they have. Could that be handled better than it has been? I kind of feel like I'd need to see the original material to really know that. Some of what's added, I agree with Austin, is pretty rough and sloppy and a little bit embarrassing to look at in that first episode anyway. There's nothing past that first 15 minutes that has me embarrassed for them, but then we also haven't had any more big, giant suit battles yet, and I'm more than a little concerned for when we get back to that stuff. It has an identity crisis, and this speaks to something Austin just mentioned, which is in that it used to be a lighter, more comedic show, and now it's the revival series for the Netflix show. And I do appreciate that they've now made it perfectly abundantly clear that all the stuff in that show happened, because I was really concerned that it was going to be totally ambiguous about that. They were going to have their cake and eat it too. And if it is going to be these actors, I'm, I guess, glad that they're doing that. That's a double-edged sword, though, because if the writing isn't there, it turns into like Falcon and Winter Soldier again, and where you're kind of riding the coattails of something that was great, trying to live up to that, but you just don't have the talent that knows how to do that properly. So it ends up being a cheap imitation. And we're 3 episodes in. This could be better than that. I need the rest of it. So far, I think I'm in the same place I was with Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think Austin had already, if I can just compare our feelings for a second, I think Austin had already checked out by this point in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I was still with it. And it was by 4 or 5 that it had totally lost me. And that's about where I'm at with this, where I'm like, I can still see the potential in it. I don't hate it yet. I'm real lukewarm on it before I'm anything right now. Best thing is like obviously like everybody said it's probably Cox and D'Onofrio's performance, but to pick something different, I'm just gonna say I appreciate that it's Daredevil's show. That's not a given. I was worried that it would be a bunch of different subplots about characters I could not care less about. Now, my worst thing is mediocre to pointless supporting cast, and I'm just glad that my mediocre so far, maybe some of them will get more interesting, to pointless supporting cast don't all have their own boring Hogarth level subplots. Like I'm glad that's not going on yet. But even though I'm appreciating that it is Cox's show, it is Matt Murdock's show, I'm questioning his performance some, and it's not Cox's fault. So you guys are right that he's still wonderful in every scene he's in. I can't decide if he's the same character in every scene he's in because we have a really unfortunate retroactively added motivation for him that clearly wasn't there when they were originally shooting. And so there are scenes where I feel like he and the whole show should just be more somber than it is. So his like response in certain scenes to the tragedy in the first episode that we'll talk about when we get to spoilers is there, and then sometimes I feel like it should be just bubbling below the surface, but I'm not feeling that at all. And then some of it is just kind of like counterintuitive choices in status quo that I can't decide how I feel about yet. But I'm leaning toward I'm not liking, and we can get into the details of all of that. So Sign Flip is tough. I guess I have to say green because I do want to keep watching it. I'm finding it more watchable than most other Disney Plus shows that I've put up with. And that's the other thing where I feel like it's got an identity crisis. Like I've got an identity crisis trying to review it because Robert was saying, you want to take it on its own terms, but its terms are muddled, right? Like its terms are it's its own thing, but we've got to grab onto the nostalgia trip of the Netflix Daredevil show. I read an article the other day that confirmed, I mentioned this to Austin earlier today, a suspicion I had, which was that one of the big reasons they decided to go back to the Netflix stuff and reshoot a lot is because of the success of X-Men 97. Because the big in thing with this stuff right now is nostalgia bait. And I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because, again, if it's these actors, I do want it to be that continuity, but there's the question of like, are we there, for the right reasons and stuff? It's kind of sad that we can't just have the old showrunners back and see what their season 4 would have been, or some version of that that takes place later, in the timeline. And also trying to meld those two things is awkward because I'm asking, and we can get into the specifics here in a second, but I'm asking questions like, did anybody get blipped? Like there's stuff we're not talking about that is a lot more awkward when it's more MCU proper now and also connected to that old show. But light green at the moment because I will stick with it. If I have to compare it to the old show, it's like the writing just doesn't seem there to me yet. If I have to compare it to Disney Plus and MCU Phase 4 and 5, it's much higher in the echelon. So anyway, that's where I'm at with it.
Just to add to one thing you said real quick, with X-Men 97 being a factor in the revamp, Charlie Cox and D'Onofrio have also been pretty blunt about them thinking that it wasn't working. Like they are a bit more hands-on than you typically see from actors.
That's the other reason that they reshot, because those guys went to Foggy and said, this isn't working, we have to do something.
Yes.
They had a meeting about it.
Yeah, and I know Cox in particular really wanted some more of the old faces back. It really sounds like he wasn't happy about that initial direction.
Sorry, Ryan,
I mean,
I didn't mean to step on you.
I'm glad they said something.
Well, do you guys agree with this though? That okay, let's say that they never reworked it, did the reshoots, brought in more actors. Like, let's say this is just a reboot. This is our first Disney MCU Daredevil show. This is still a really weird place to start, right? Just the story, like for newcomers who don't know this character. I've heard people say like, "Oh yeah, this is supposed to be like this is supposed to stand on its own, and you don't have to watch the old show." At this point in its current state, I think you absolutely have to. But even if it was in its prior state, I still think this is a weird entry point, and I can't see too many people watching this going in blind, as John said,
It's
and
having your cake
getting
and
into it, right?
eating it too, even with that. Because what's awkward about it is that you introduced a pre-established Daredevil and Kingpin to your world that you've already seen on
Yeah.
screen. So it's hard to full on do your own thing without the old show at least feeling like vague back matter, because you have to have already had showdowns with your Daredevil and your Kingpin. So you're still stuck doing something different with Kingpin. But you're right. Like, we're doing our own brand new thing. It's going to be a total reboot. Mayor Fisk. That's what we do first.
Not only that, but I would say they're more dual protagonists so far. And like the whole thing with Fisk is like, he's trying to be better now, and like, is he going to slip? Is he going to not? That is a very weird place to start with Kingpin.
It is, and it's also awkward because we can't tell for sure what his motivations are yet. We're like, we know what Matt is doing, and we can go ahead and get into spoilers. We know that, so full on spoilers now, guys. We know that Matt can't be Daredevil anymore because he's afraid that he'll go even farther than he did before. Like, he's crossed a line. He almost killed Bullseye in the opening. With Kingpin, we spend a lot of time with him for being so walled off from him. Now, we did that in the first season also, but it felt real and I guess all the way through that show, but it felt really intentionally walled off, where like he felt like the antagonist that we were spending time with. Austin's right. I can't decide if it's dual protagonist or if he's supposed to be the main antagonist and we're just not being allowed in his head yet. I don't trust that they know. Hopefully they know, but I'm not sure.
I feel like, and feel free to disagree, but I feel like, especially with their history, like it feels like they're leaving details out so that we can get to the classic Disney Plus flashback episode later that like delves more into the Vanessa stuff with him.
Well, especially because of the whole Adam business, where they keep talking about this guy that Vanessa was with, and Kingpin's upset about it, and I was sitting there going, am I forgetting something from the show? Am I supposed to know who this is? And I looked it up. Apparently not. It's just this character they keep talking about.
Yeah, no, they're implying that she had an affair, but they're like I said, I feel like they're holding information away so that they can do that later on. And I don't think that works when you're doing a dual protagonist thing with both of them.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of both, because the way D'Onofrio's talked about it is that he's explained it as well. He's kind of informed by the events of Echo, of what happened to Kingpin in there, which most people didn't watch, but like, I don't know if the writers know that, or if that's just D'Onofrio's understanding of the character, or how it makes sense to him. But yeah, that doesn't all come across on screen.
And I don't like that he's motivated so much more by that than he is by anything with Daredevil, because like you said, Robert, like, most of us skipped that show. I saw the first episode and didn't hate it, and I was gonna finish it, and I wasn't super compelled, so I've never gone back and done that. But this is one of those shows where so far I've been having a hard time not thinking of just more interesting potential directions it could have gone. Like,
Mhm.
what if, and you know me, I don't mean to rewrite the thing. We don't have all of it yet, so like maybe it'll come around and I'll be happy with what they're doing. But what we have right now is, I feel like some missed opportunities with some really cool potential paralleling between Daredevil and Kingpin. And because I don't understand his motivations yet, I don't know if that's really what we're doing. So, like, both of them are trying to hang up their violent alter egos and see maybe if that's indeed what Kingpin is doing, and see if they can push back against their darker natures. And they're both using the law to do it, which is potentially interesting. But wouldn't it be more interesting if two things were true? If A, one of the reasons I guess Kingpin would need a more sinister motivation for this. So these could be contradictory ideas. But the first thing I thought was, isn't it weird to have Fisk deciding to be mayor to shut down vigilantes after Matt Murdock has stopped being a vigilante? You know, like, wouldn't it be more interesting if we were watching a story where he's doing that to try to force Matt Murdock to not be able to be Daredevil anymore? And the other thought I had was, wouldn't it be, and this is a different idea, but wouldn't it be more interesting if Kingpin was doing this because he was inspired by Matt Murdock stopping being Daredevil?
I think the latter is a lot more interesting, but yeah, it doesn't seem like that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's inspired by, getting, shot by Echo. Was he shot by her?
Yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned that in the first episode in that diner scene.
It's like,
but they also saw each other again in the Echo show.
And Robert, that's the other question is, what really is his motivation for cracking down so hard on the vigilante thing? Like, is it just retribution with Echo? Is it just retribution for like Daredevil in general, going all the way back, even though he's not in a costume? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's awkward. I'm not sure what his thing is. So, like, if he is really trying to turn over a new leaf, and obviously he's doing not above board things anyway, because he's willing to resort to blackmail very early. So it's not just he wants to go straight. And again, I think it would be kind of more fun and more interesting if indeed that's what it was, and we could see if he could pull that off or not. So far, it seems like he's just using this as a new ploy to kind of get power again. But then his wife or somebody mentions that. Oh no, I remember who it was. It's the police commissioner. I don't know why you've given up so much power for lesser power. It's like, it can't just be about power. Now, if the mystery is why is he doing this, okay, but like, I'm not trusting them to make that satisfying. I hope it will be.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also strange because
Go ahead, John.
he clearly knows
that was amazing. You guys both said the same sentence in stereo.
I know,
and I wish you both
perfectly
continued to see if it was going to be the same sentence.
I wish we
way.
both said go ahead.
Because he also knows that, like, what Vanessa's doing and her connections to the underworld. So my initial thought was maybe he's trying to ban vigilantism to let her business prosper, and maybe it's like them working together. But I'm not sure, just because we're only about a third of the way through the season.
Well, and they're
But I
clearly
do wonder,
not on the same page.
Yeah, especially by episode 3, you have that scene with the two of them where she's like, let's do crime things. And he's like, no, I want to be good now. But it's also really weird because he's cracking down on the vigilante thing, but it also doesn't seem to tie into what's happening with White Tiger. I almost said White Dragon again. With White Tiger.
are you sure you watched the show?
God, I wish I hadn't. Or the Punisher cops. Like, all of that seems so disconnected, which is weird because they should be like a very tight idea, I would think.
Yeah, again, there's so many ideas that you just could have fleshed out and built up more in the first episode to make this more clear. Like the White Tiger stuff, you could have had a lot more setup with in the first episode than just a couple of throwaway lines. I did like the scene, though, in the first episode of Matt and Fisk in the diner. Just their banter back and forth. Like that is where you get like the take of, okay, this is what we're doing. Like this truce between them. I was like, okay, this is interesting.
I
This
just
is
thought it was really
new
overwritten.
territory.
I
Yeah,
also
sure.
think it's way too jovial. It's way too like, I don't know, in like a meta, like we're back here doing our thing, the two of us guys, we're back at it, and I'm like, nah, like I'm sorry, but this doesn't work. And one of my big things is, I need an actual explanation for why Fisk can come back
Mhm.
and like be accepted by the public again. And also, with this one, I think the answer is just they decided to fully connect it at the last second. But I need like some sort of explanation about why the ending of season 3 doesn't matter anymore. Where Matt finally beats Fisk, and like he kind of can't come back with like the whole Vanessa blackmail thing that they set up. Like, why is he able to just circumvent that? And he's been working for years again, and like Vanessa's there. I don't know, like, and I think the answer is they don't care, which is like
Mhm.
whatever. But
Well,
just go ahead.
oh, sorry. Just like Cap was saying about like the whole blip of it all. I've talked with John about this before. My head canon has always been that if the Netflix show is canon, then season 3 has to end before the blip happens. Like that's the only way that makes any sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they came out around the same time, so that's not like crazy. And they have said that this show picks up 6 years after that, plus an extra year with the time jump, so it's 7 years after the Netflix show. Okay, like that's enough time for things to happen. But the Fisk of it all, that just goes all the way back to Hawkeye, where I think it was a mistake just introducing him into the out in the wild in the MCU out of prison, and I think that's just a mistake that's kind of followed them since. For me personally, this is the best we've seen of MCU Fisk, and D'Onofrio's still trying his best. I still like him in the role, but I agree that that stuff's awkward, and there's still just information we're missing, and that is a big
I agree
problem.
with that. I agree with that, definitely.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious as to whether any of our major characters lost 5 years or not.
Well, I think, doesn't Echo have like a bit where Daredevil fights Echo that's supposed to be like during that blip period? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I
Oh,
think
I
that's
didn't know that's where that
supposed to
took
be.
place.
I could be wrong.
I
I
don't
could be
remember.
wrong. But
I'm not sure.
I think that's what it is. I also think their explanation for why Kingpin comes back is that he's able to kind of regain power during that, but I also could be wrong about that.
Mhm.
It was really kind of a mistake to tie any of the Daredevil story to Echo, a show that nobody wanted to watch.
A thing that already like really puts a weird nail into Daredevil, because Kingpin has this like apprentice that he's had since like the 90s. All of that's weird.
Mhm.
Well, that's another thing I was
Yeah,
going to say too. Is you've got sorry, Robert. You've got so much potential for again cool paralleling and like one of those guys maybe inspiring the others. How does it not come out in that conversation in the diner? Because that's a long scene, and they're like they could talk about one or two other things if that scene's going to be allowed to go that long. I like why does it come up that Kingpin was blind at one point? How do you not talk about that?
Yeah, that was pretty brief.
Even just like I've seen the world from your non-existent eyes,
Yeah.
Matt.
How does he not say that? I don't care
He was not-
that it wasn't for very long. That's too ironic in his brain not to say something about.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it was only in one eye, though. They didn't even go all the way like
Oh
they do in
really?
the comic.
See, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
whole
it was just
thing.
one eye.
Oh. Well, okay. Well,
Yeah.
then maybe that would be more awkward. It's
But-
like I've
but
seen
back
through
to-
half of your non-existent eyes.
But Cap, it's like the split. It's like, what we do with Peter Parker and Spider-Man, like the face mask thing. One side was Daredevil. You should love this. It's Prince, Cap. Come on now.
Awesome! Perfect. Let's do that. Hey, Austin, did you have what I did? I feel like D'Onofrio is laying the voice on way thicker than he used to.
I haven't so far.
Okay, because I was finding that really
hasn't
distracting,
hit me.
particularly in that second episode. I didn't have it so much in 3, but
Mm.
earlier on, and I think some of it is just like weird dialogue they're giving him, where
There is a bit of that. Like when you have
his
that scene where
vernacular
he's
seems off sometimes. Like sometimes it's fine, and then he'll say things where I'm like, "Nah, you speak too formally for that." I can't deal with this version of Kingpin saying a guy in a spider suit. It's like that guy doesn't call people guys. He's too formal for that.
Mhm. No, and like there's also that scene where he's like, "I love Philly cheesesteaks," and like that whole scene is very awkward. Where I'm like, I cannot picture this man saying anything he's saying in this scene.
Well,
No, that
I mean,
yeah.
that whole thing was a ruse,
Yeah,
not a ruse,
no,
but like
it
it
is.
was
It's
all
just
fake. But the way he was talking just seems off. I'm with you. It was really funny when he was like, "The sandwich is terrible."
one pickle is extra. You gave me 2 pickles in front of Vanessa.
A normal amount is 1 pickle. And then the man that sold it to him gets shot in the head at the end. Just like walks out into an alley and gets shot in the head. And then there's a Punisher symbol. Hey, we're jumping around, but Austin, can I ask you a question?
If you want.
What are you so on about with the Punisher cop thing? Because like I don't have feelings yet. I'm indifferent. I don't know what we're doing with that. But you just seem to be like super angry about it for some reason, and I don't know what to do with it yet. Like
I'm not super angry with it. I just think it's really cringy that the first thing that we're doing with Punisher is going, "Oh, you know this thing that's happening in the real world? Like, let's just jump straight into that." And like, you can do it. Like, you can make it work. You can make it interesting. I don't really like.
Explain that. I didn't even have that thought.
Oh, just because like that is a thing that's happened where it's like you've had like cops or whatever that have like put on that symbol and have done bad things.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like,
I knew we'd kind of ousted the symbol in comics, and that's been really awkward. But I didn't know that was the reason.
That's why.
That's part of it, and it
okay.
falls into that line where I'm like, I don't need it to be addressed in universe. Like, I feel like you're giving more to that voice by doing that. For me personally, I can understand. I can understand not having that. I also genuinely think that you can do it and make it work. I don't trust them, and so far, nothing that they've done with them has really shown me that they can make it work. I think every scene with them so far has been very over the top, which is not how you should play that. Like you have the sequence where they go in to kill the witness guy that they're looking for, and then they see a blind man, and they're like, "Haha, let's beat the heck out of this blind man. We're the bad guys. Haha, we're Punisher cops." And just like, I don't know, man. None of that's working for me.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, and I mean, hopefully we'll understand this later, but like, what about the Punisher is motivating them to put the symbol on? You know, like they're not doing anything that the Punisher does. Like they're not going after like bad people. They're corrupt cops. So like I'm just wondering what that symbol is symbolizing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have enough information about like what their end goal is to have an opinion on the storyline.
I'm also just very worried that because the story ends in one of two ways: either Punisher just kills them and we move on, or we do the comic book thing and he goes, I have to change my symbol because they adopted it. And I am worried about that. I'm not going to hold that against the show yet because like that hasn't happened. But no, just everything with them I think is just, I don't know, not up to the same level, I don't think.
It'll be super awkward if he changes his symbol because he's worn it for like 5 minutes.
Well, everyone connected to this between Matt and Frank, like everybody keeps retiring and coming back over and over. The last 3 times Matt's shown up, he's been retired and coming back, and that's just every appearance of the Punisher.
I don't know if they do that.
The Punisher's only worn his actual symbol for what, like 5 minutes of the last episode of each season.
Yeah,
a little more than
much.
I hope if he has to change it, it's a smiley face, though.
He just becomes the comedian.
Yeah. Let me read a couple super chats real quick. Sorry, John. What was that?
Yeah.
I was just saying it'd be better than that symbol they gave him in the comics. It looks terrible.
What was it? I didn't see it.
Austin, all I remember is it's based on the hand because he takes control.
Yeah, it's kind of like his symbol mixed with the hand, from what I remember, and I don't know. It looks really goofy.
That's convoluted. It's like you can't have a skull, but you can have like sort of a skull.
Well, I think now we have a new Punisher, so I don't know. Marvel doesn't know what to do with that character.
Is it a girl? I bet it's a girl.
I don't think it is, but...
Okay, great. Now when I had a super chat, well, at least Bullseye finally got a bloody costume. Yeah, such as it was.
The worst costume ever.
It's not good. Yeah.
So it's been a while since I've seen season 3, and I didn't immediately know that was Bullseye even when they show his face for a second. And I always watch the stuff with subtitles. I needed the subtitles to tell me that's who that was initially.
When you see his hands... Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
I was surprised that the first thing we see is a paperclip going through a fly. I was like, oh, we're doing a reference to the movie?
Yeah.
That's a weird way to...
I missed that. So,
introduce the character.
So I actually rewatched that scene. I didn't rewatch all the episodes, but when it first came out, I watched the first 15 minutes, and I was like, this is rough. And it was getting late and I needed to go to bed, and so I didn't finish it until later. So I started over and I watched it again. And I don't know if I was like just looking away for some reason or something, but I missed the fly thing the first time I saw it. And so I would have known it was Bullseye if I noticed the fly thing.
Yeah, and then when he grabs the light, the logo's like, or the symbol, I guess, is on his gloves, but it's like, it's pretty subtle on it. Apparently, just Daredevil things now with the show hate symbols. Daredevil can't have the DD, which I mean goes back to the Netflix show, and Bullseye can't have the Bullseye symbol on anything. Yeah, he also has it in his gun when he's aiming.
He's sort of got a D in his mask. Like when the mask is falling, there's
it's like the broken horn kind of has it.
Is that what that's supposed to be? Is that the broken horn? Because I just noticed, like, when the mask is falling, I was like, it looks like there's a D in the mask. Is that all it is? Okay. Well, that's cute, right? The broken D makes... The broken horn makes it... Why does Karen give him that? Like, what is she saying to him with the horn? And does he know what she's saying to him with the horn?
I don't know.
I think they just needed to give him something that is like I need something to hold to like symbolize that I'm struggling with everything right now. So it's like
we keep going back to it, and it's in the intro.
Coming back to him when he's holding it. Yeah, exactly.
So like it's clearly supposed to be representative of, you know, obviously him giving up the suit, but like, is she saying like that was a mistake? He shouldn't have done that, or is she saying the opposite? Is she ever going to show up again to talk about it? I do think there's a chance that she comes back and ends up being a bigger part of the show than we all think she will be. But
I think she could be a regular by season 2.
I think I heard that she was supposed to come back for season 2.
Yeah. Can we get back to the whole like when this thing stopped production and restarted, and kind of more of the details around that? So we talked about how initially they announced 18 episodes is going to be more episodic. So I did go back and do some research and took some notes on that. So the first time going through before the overhaul happened, they shot roughly the first 6 episodes. So what we're currently seeing is retooled from that, but then they went up to 9. So when we get to the last couple episodes of this season, that is going to be entirely new territory with this showrunner. Working with the old stuff. So I'm very confident that like Karen will probably be back by the end of this season, and then I think they said we'll be back in 2. We're still just in that awkward phase of we're still reworking old stuff. And I'm with Austin where I do like the actor who played White Tiger, and who has since passed away. That's why there's a dedication to him. And now I'm conflicted because I am in the camp where I kind of wish they had scrapped everything and rebooted completely, but that would also mean losing that subplot. And while I don't think all that stuff's great, I did like him a lot, and yeah, it would have sucked to have had to scrap all that footage with him. So I don't know. Currently, I'm very conflicted on like how much we should have retooled old stuff and started over completely, just with that.
Yeah, but totally
factor of it all.
restarting, there's no reason that you couldn't have like kept that as a major like ongoing like like uh like story point,
Subplot.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because they're adapting some from Soul and apparently some from Zarsky, and that's Soul stuff. Uh, the idea of having like vigilantes on the stand, and what he did with it was he has a whole thing about like whether or not you can force someone to like unmask on the stand, uh, and all of that, and like I wish they'd kind of gone all the way and done the opposite of what they did and actually put a superhero in a mask on the stand, as opposed to having somebody that nobody realizes is a hero. Hey, how did you guys feel in this last episode about Matt outing him the way he did? Like, do you because I questioned it for a minute where like it's all for shock factor in the courtroom, and I was conflicted because I was like, well, he could have just told White Tiger about it, and like that seems like a violation with him. And I get that it was a big Hail Mary play, and the one thing I did like about it is he's like, well, we've just got to put him on the stand and hope for the best. And I'm like, that almost never works. Like 98% of the time, you put the or more you put the defendant on the stand, and he's gonna like cream his own case. It's not gonna work. So I like that he had an ace up his sleeve like that. But I wondered if he had told Hector about it, could he have convinced Hector to go along with it, or like was he being kind of an ass for doing that? I don't know. I was a little conflicted about it.
I was conflicted too, and I can't say if that's like a positive or not. Like we should be allowed to take Matt to those more morally questionable places.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't hate it as an idea, but I certainly felt like he could have told him ahead of time. But I also think at least by the end of the episode that my guess is that they certainly could have fleshed that out, because by the end of the episode I don't think Hector would have gone along with that or would have approved of that. So, but maybe they should have made a stronger case for that. I don't know. But most of the courtroom stuff I thought was fine. I did like that subplot for the most part. Although I'm with Austin that the end of that episode, personally, it fell a bit flat for me, and again seemed kind of rushed and weirdly handled. But
I wanted it.
Sorry.
That's right.
You weren't finished.
No, that was the gist of it.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I feel like they wanted to have that, like, end of the first episode of Jessica Jones thing, where, like, they really get you with it, but it's, like...
It's going
really
for a gut punch.
Exactly, but it's, like, really obvious the entire time that's the only way it's going to play. What was I going to say with that? No, and I feel like they'll probably delve more into Matt feeling conflicted about that, because that's part of why he gets killed by the end.
Yeah, there is that.
So I do think they will probably flesh that out more. Can Matt be disbarred though for like that play where he gets that removed from evidence just to drop it as a Hail Mary later?
Yeah,
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
I'm not
maybe
saying
a
it's
little easy, where the judge is like, well, I don't know what else we can do now. Like, you can't really have a mistrial, so I guess we'll just keep going forward. Like, no, you probably fire him.
You turned your entire trial into a circus.
It also throws... Oh, sorry, just real quick. It also throws Hector under the bus a little bit at the end, because it seems like White Tiger is way too easy to take out.
Yeah, that bothered me.
That's those Punisher cops.
Again, if we saw more of White Tiger doing stuff in like the first episode and had more setup for that, that I think that would have been more of a gut punch.
Especially because I think they're trying to do like he's very much like a hero for the people, right? Like the guy on the streets, like kind of like what you think of with like Spider-Man and Daredevil and whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when you have so many cutaways to people in New York, I think you could have done that a lot better. Mm-hmm. where maybe we could have actually seen some of those people that then go up on the stand in support of him before that.
Those cutaways feel really generic and wasted to me, most of them, because I
They
think
are-
they're there to give you, they're like ostensibly supposed to be there to give you a sense of what the like overall consensus or lack thereof is on the street, but I feel like we're just talking to random isolated people with really generic opinions. Like I don't really there's a lot of not showing problems with the show, right? Like there's a lot of talking about how New York is a powder keg, and Fisk is able to be elected because it's in that bad a shape that people are just looking for any kind of sense of change whatsoever. I don't know if that's supposed to be a Trump allegory or not, like the 100,000th of those, but we're supposed to feel like it's that, like we're that divided, like any crazy thing could happen. And in the original show, it felt like New York was that violent and that corrupt and that screwed up, and I don't get a good sense of the overall like tone and atmosphere of the city right now. Like, why is it any worse now than it was, in the Netflix days? Like, I have no idea, and I think the people on the street are supposed to tell us that, but I'm not getting that from it.
Yeah, it's also.
Go ahead, Robert. Go ahead.
Oh, it's just kidding. It's also worse that we keep cutting to like the same 4 or 5 people, so it feels more repetitive and cheaper. If
I
it was
didn't realize
different
that.
people, yeah, I noticed a few recurring ones. Like if it was completely different people, episode to episode, I think that'd be a little better, just good to make the city feel more full. But because it's the same 4 or 5 people, I'm like, okay, this is getting repetitive and feels kind of pointless.
No, on paper, I love that. Like, it's the Frank Miller thing, right? But it feels like Frank Miller for the TikTok generation, where we're just constantly cutting, and it's like, how do you feel about Fisk? He's a good guy. Like, I don't know, like, it's not really adding anything. But if you had gone all the way with it and just, went full Frank Miller, it could have potentially been awesome.
Well, and then like, let Urich be more of a character and give her FaceTime in her own show. Have her turn the camera around and be like, okay, I've talked to all these people. Here's what the polls show. Like, let her be the face of what's happening. I also think it's really awkward. I don't know how you guys feel about this. Just how long we have the BB report before we even see her. Like, and they don't really play it like a big exciting reveal or anything. It's just, and there's Urich's niece. And I'm like, why did we conceal her for that long? And then now it's there she is. And I don't know why, but I predicted something like that would happen. I don't know why. Like, I was just sure we'd have something related to Urich this season, and there she is.
Well, I feel like the biggest thing, like moving forward, if they could go back, if they could turn back time, I feel like the biggest regret that original show made was killing off Ben Urich, because then they always kind of floundered with how to fill that space. And I think his death in that original show is great. I'm not saying it's not.
It's great for that show, but I gotta tell you, that's one of the reasons that I see, and there's great stuff in 2, and 3 is a better season than 2, but that's why I see that first season as a piece, and the rest of it is just icing for me. Like, when I think of that show, it's just that first season. Like, I kind of don't care about the rest of it, even the good stuff. Like, I get everybody loves the Punisher stuff. Yeah, it's good, but like, Ben Urich was the best character in that show for me, and the story called for him to be killed where he was, and it was great. And then after that season, I did not really care anymore.
No, they really flounder with what to do with that side of it after season 1, even though obviously I really like season 2 and season 3. And then this season goes full like soft reboot, like decades later sequel, like Force Awakens type thing, which this show I think has a lot of, like, even down to, well, we brought the hero back and now they're all depressed because things didn't work out. But like that's like the most of that, where it's like, here's Ben Urich's cool niece that's super obnoxious.
If you're gonna do that, go all the way with it. Take the risk and let her be like Ben Urich Jr. Like, just go all the way. Let her be kind of gruff and rough around the edges, and even young. Like, let her what I think it ought to be. And again, I'm rewriting it, but what they've got with her so far feels like nothing to me. I don't even mind the idea of like Ben Urich's got this niece and she's following in his footsteps. Have her investigate his death. You know,
Man,
like,
I think that's where they could be going. I just don't know yet.
I feel like that's where they're going. It's just
okay, I hope so. Maybe they'll turn me around on it. But so far, we just keep putting a pin in that. Her meeting, or that first meeting with Fisk, felt completely pointless to me. Because she just goes in there and is like, you can ask him anything you want to. And then she doesn't ask him anything. I don't understand that.
I don't know. I think she's fine. I don't find her obnoxious like Austin does. I hope we're going somewhere cool with that.
Yes, I did not say obnoxious. I do think so far she looks like she could just be a kind of a pointless CW character, but like maybe she'll be more than that. That Daniel kid is absolutely a pointless CW character, so far, or Daniel. Like, I only want to refer to him the way Fisk says it. Daniel,
the guy that BB Urich has political benefits with.
Yeah. See, that's a CW line. There you go.
Yep.
Friends with political benefits.
Yes, it is.
Didn't need that.
And that's her introduction. That's like the second thing she says.
That's true. I'm not buying Matt's new love interest at all. I don't see any chemistry there whatsoever. I don't really get what he sees in her. I'm not sure why that blind date worked out. I feel like we also have so far kind of too many supporting characters. And maybe, you know, they'll all get fleshed out and we're doing more things with them. But like, you've got McDuffie, who in the comics is a love interest for Matt Murdock, and here she's his new partner, and she sets him up with someone, and like maybe the two of them will eventually get together, but I don't know that he would have any more chemistry with her, because I also am not finding her all that compelling yet. But
she's Heather Glenn, who is a Daredevil love interest as well. But she's like Heather Glenn in name only. Like, has nothing to do with that character.
And McDuffie has, I guess, a little bit more to do with the comic version, but she doesn't feel like that character so much to me yet either. That character I am familiar with, but...
No, cynically, it does kind of feel like they're like, oh, we're, an adult show now. We got to do the Sopranos therapist thing. So Heather Glenn is a therapist now.
Yeah, I mean, I again, like BB, I like the idea of Heather. I personally think they have fine chemistry. I just wish we had more time to explore that relationship in interesting ways. I like the idea of Matt dating a therapist. The problem is their first like long conversation they have together, we kind of fade out the audio and it just goes to music, and then we cut away. So it's like, oh, so we're not going to actually write these two connecting. We're just going to end it over, and now they're just dating. Okay. You know, I agree that there are too many supporting characters. I think they're all fine. I think the acting's pretty good, but again, there's just not enough setup for any of them, and there's just too much going on, I think.
How much time is supposed to have taken place in that first episode?
I was guessing weeks or months, but I'm really not sure.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. The structure of that is bizarre.
Yeah. It feels like Fisk enters and wins that election in like 5 minutes.
It feels like he decides to runs and wins in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and I wish that was the season. Like we need a real-time 24-hour-esque season that's just Fisk deciding to run for mayor and becoming mayor from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m.
No, and Kat messaged me. He was like, in the comics, Luke Cage becomes mayor after Kingpin. Maybe we could do that. And I said, yeah, it could be the first episode of next season. Apparently, it only takes 24 hours.
Yeah, I started reading Zarsky, and Cage is mayor in that. And I was like, oh, I bet they do that. I bet that's how they bring him in. If they can get Coulter to come back.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone even ask him about it. I know the popular one that everybody wants on the show is Jessica Jones, and I'd be happy if she popped in somewhere. But
Well, and like, when does Claire show up? Like, that's gotta happen, right?
I don't think I've heard any talk of Claire. I have heard Mike Coulter answer that question, but I haven't really heard anything about her or Matt's mom.
Yeah.
Well, they seem to not want to remember that season 3 happened, so I don't know if you'll see her. Austin, you were really concerned that they would downplay the Catholicism. So far, it's been kind of lip service. Like, it's sort of referenced.
There is a really interesting thing you could play, which is that there's one scene where he looks at the church and they imply that with Daredevil, he's also not wanting to go back to church. The only issue is we don't do anything. Like, it's implied in like one scene.
That's the type of thing he could talk to his therapist girlfriend about. And
Exactly.
Well,
or be like,
Austin, it seems like that's
hey, Mom, I don't want to go to your church.
It seems like that's supposed to be the idea from the beginning, because the intro has a steeple falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's the reborn. Everything falls apart and rebuilds into Daredevil. He is born again.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to read that yet. I mean, it's kind of interesting that he would give up the costume where, he's going outside of the law and he's pushing his own ethics, and like now that he is refusing to do that, that's when he stops going to church. But maybe it's because he doesn't feel worthy anymore. It's probably that. It's probably not just like, if he's Daredevil, he can't have that part of his life. It's probably he crossed that line, so he doesn't feel like he can.
Like he thinks his soul is damned, but he's just gonna do the best he can.
Yeah, well, and maybe he never went to absolution for it. I mean, maybe it's as literal as he doesn't want to go to church because he can't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we're all like, Matt, just go there after church.
Yes. Brandon Martin, I'm not even going to explain that. Brandon Martin, $5 super chat. The showrunner was not saying that the Netflix show had too much talking. He was talking about Born Again before it was retooled. He was misquoted. Is that true?
That's not how I read it, because this showrunner, for people who don't know, was also a writer and producer on the Punisher show, so he actually has ties to the Netflix series. And he was also talking about the Punisher series, saying, like, we couldn't always do what we wanted to do because of limited budget or whatever, and things were stretched out and slower than he'd like them to be. So maybe I misread it, but I certainly always took it as him talking about the Netflix Daredevil show, not as not talking about Born Again before it was retooled. But I could have also misread that.
Yeah.
But because he was, but because he was talking about Punisher 2, which he worked on, I always just took that as him talking about the Netflix shows.
Nicholas Bodo, is this show trying to be a tonal mix of Netflix and the 2003 movie? The first 15 minutes are.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with that much. Especially with that much, like, gelatin, like bouncing off of roofs. That was hard to look at. I'm sorry to say.
In a lot of ways, this show is the exact monkey's paw wish that I made like years ago, where it's like, I wish the Netflix show had the money to have Daredevil swing on rooftops. I wish they did a little bit more lawyer stuff, like, all these different things. I wish they had a little bit of a bigger budget. And it monkey's pawed into the show.
Well, like there's I guess the opening I didn't hate as much as you guys did, but it's very rushed and the CGI is very bad. But again, like those first 15 minutes, which are all reshoots, like that should have been an entire episode, I thought, to really spend time with both the new characters and what happens to Foggy and the status quo shift. And which we know was always part of the plan, though. Like, just originally Foggy did die. That was always the plan, just that was going to happen off screen. Mm-hmm. And we want to see him at all. So it's like, here you go. You get a scene with him. So now let's, see the catalyst for this story. Like, I guess that's an improvement.
But that's why I'm saying it looks, and I might be wrong about this, Robert, but that's why I'm saying it looks like a retroactive like way to force a motivation, because yes, Foggy was killed off screen, but did Matt, like, in the original version, would he have tried to kill Bullseye? Like, I think all that's added.
Yeah, maybe.
And so if I'm right, you've got scenes with him not playing that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not just that
No, that's
Foggy
fair.
died, it's what he did as a consequence of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that first episode just has way too many coincidental important things happening all at the same time. Whether it's supposed to happen over more time than it looks like it's happening or not, it's like Fisk is running for mayor and again becomes mayor, and Matt meets his new love interest because he's set up on a date with her, and I can't remember what else. There's another like big like major event. They just all happen at the same time because it's the first episode, and so they have to.
Bullseye's trial, maybe.
Oh yes, that's the other thing. Is that yeah, all the same time. You've also got Bullseye getting sentenced. That's all convenient. That just feels kind of pilot-itis-y to me.
That's fair. I mean, again, Kingpin running for mayor. I mean, that was set up in Echo at the very end, but like, I totally see what you're saying.
No, I know, but he's becoming mayor at the same time all that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. And Robert, also, I don't think you're right about just the first 15 minutes of that being a reshoot, because the second episode was supposed to be the first episode, which means that the majority of that first episode was new material.
Oh, that's even stranger.
I don't know.
I think the first episode's a mix.
It's definitely a mix, because it does feel like they just slapped a prologue onto it, but then obviously I didn't think about it until Robert mentioned it to me, like Vanessa, everything with her has to be reshoots.
Yep. Yeah. And there's a lot of references to Netflix things that would not have been there in the first place. And like, where would all of that have gone if the second episode was supposed to be the pilot? And like that comes from the horse's mouth.
I do think there is stuff though in that first episode. It was probably like combined, like all together would make up a first episode.
Yeah, maybe.
I always thought the diner scene was always planned to be in that first episode. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I would think
the ending Fisk winning.
Also, why couldn't it have just opened with Fisk is the mayor and Matt goes to quote unquote congratulate him? Like, I don't know why why we had to see all of that. Like, what did that give us? They didn't give us anything. Like, just have it open kind of in medias res. Like, I hate the Foggy death just like everybody else does, but like, if you have to have that, the very next thing you should see is just a TV monitor. Fisk wins, and then have them go have that conversation. Like, that would have been a neat way to open.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do like, having him reacting to Fisk is running and that question, but the issue is that's a season. That's not an episode, or at least like a part of a season. Not 20 minutes.
Yeah, I agree, but you could have it be the new status quo that you open with.
Mm-hmm.
You can just say
no, for sure, but yeah, no, for sure. But I also would have liked to have delved into that more.
Yeah, but it just depends on what story you're wanting to tell.
Mm-hmm. No, of course.
Like, I don't necessarily have to see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I do with
I just
this.
Think there is potential there, yeah.
I do that, but I'm just saying I wouldn't have questioned it if it just opens on like,
yeah, for sure.
He just won that. He's mayor now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you're already jumping a year forward, you could have just done that.
Yeah, that's maybe how I would have gone about it. Stretching out that prologue, having Fisk running for mayor be a part of it, and then we jump a year, and Fisk just is mayor. I think that could have been
fine. Sorry, where is it? Dewan Powers, how is everybody feeling about Cherry? He's the one new regular character, because obviously we've already lost Austin's favorite character, White Dragon. Because apparently he's Jason David Frank.
Poor Robert Patrick, he's gone.
But
I always called him Robert Pattinson. It would have been a whole inception.
I thought that's where I was going.
By the way, when I said Jason David Frank, that
Austin doesn't
isn't
know
me
who's in the
being
show.
crass about his death. He's the last thing he did that has not come out yet. Still, they're still editing it. Is a thing called Legend of the White Dragon. That's why I said that. Anyway,
I went to the better White Dragon. It's okay.
Yeah, probably so. But anyway, yeah, Cherry I think has potential. He's the one of the new characters that feels like he could have been in that original show. And I like that he is set up at the start. I guess McDuffie is also, but
yeah, I think Cherry's fine. He's kind of just there to be a stand-in for Foggy and the cop guy from the original 3. Like, I don't have that where I feel like he could have been in the original show, but just because his role is so much something that other characters filled.
no, you're
But he's
right.
fine.
I just mean as a character, he feels like
Yeah.
he fits in that world. Is all I'm saying. He would have been
No, that's
redundant,
fine.
absolutely, but Austin, the rest of that cast, I mean,
They're
kind
all
of
CW
all of them
characters, I know.
don't feel like they belong in that universe. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that might be one of my bigger issues. It's just I don't like most of the new supporting cast, so it's even more annoying that we got rid of the supporting cast that I like for these for these.
Yeah, well, because a lot of people I think are gonna say like, "Oh, they killed Foggy," and like that's inherently an issue. My thing is more so A, I think the execution is really bad, and B, we throw out the supporting cast to replace them with CW characters. Like,
Yeah, you could do something interesting with killing Foggy,
you absolutely could.
and maybe something with that will tie, into a later episode. I don't know yet, but immediately when I meet the new supporting cast, it's like, oh, I like one of them.
Yeah, no, and you can also write Karen Page out. Like, I think that's fine. It's just that we take out a big part of why that original show worked, and then went.
and it's almost as insulting or more insulting to go, oh no, people want it to be connected to that show, and they're upset that we're losing these characters. So let's force like a bunch of dialogue out of them in the first 10 minutes of the show.
Yeah, and I
rush
think
them out.
the way we write Karen out too, I think throws her under the bus. Where it's like, oh, Foggy died. She just left. I don't know. Matt was a jerk, I guess. I don't know. We're not gonna live with this. Like, we had like 3 minutes to reshoot this. Like,
I thought that
she needs to go away.
I thought that threw her way under the bus when she's like, yeah, I haven't talked to you all this time, and I can't sit in this bench with you for more than 30 seconds because you didn't talk to me for a few weeks. And now I'm never going to talk to you ever again.
I'll see you for season 2, kid, when we actually are shooting the things that we're making.
Yeah.
And like, I guess I would understand. Honestly, my main issue with that whole thing was just that line about his not calling her for a few weeks. I don't even know why that's there. Like, just have her say, I miss the triad too much. I can't look at you without seeing Foggy.
Yes, I needed to get away. Like, that's something I needed for myself.
Yeah. And she still doesn't have to, be in such a rush to leave. Now, I get, like, no, Matt, I can't go have coffee with you. Especially because, like, they were starting to finally, like, kindle a romance. Like, there's that to consider. Is, like, she's not able to go on with that now. But to be like, not only will I not go to coffee with you, but, like, I gotta get off this bench as fast as possible because you didn't call me for a few weeks. I don't know. That seemed like forced drama to me.
Yeah, we didn't have enough money to fully reshoot Cap. That was all we could get.
Yeah, those criticisms are totally fair. I'm at least expecting her to come back, so I'm not currently as upset about that. It's more what we do with her later, but that's totally fair. A scene that I did like in that trial scene with Bullseye, again, a thing that I think could be interesting to explore, but haven't yet is Matt, when he's on the stand, has that line about punishment that I actually thought was good, where the way he played that scene was like he's both hating himself for crossing that line and attempting to kill Bullseye, but he's also equally frustrated that this guy is still alive. So he doesn't even get that catharsis and that satisfaction. He still just wants him punished and kind of wishes he died. Like that's an interesting place to start with Matt.
It is
Again, I wish we talked about it more.
because it makes it more awkward for him hanging the costume up because it's like I know where I stand if he was dead. But like, there's this loophole where I didn't kill him, but I tried to, so I know I can't. Like that. Yeah, that works okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a thing I didn't even catch on a first viewing, but did in the second, because that opening fight is like horrifically shot. But before Daredevil pushes him off the roof, he also like stabs him in the spine. Which is like really hard to catch because it's so, again, not really
notice that.
Yeah, Bullseye throws a knife at him and he catches it and like stabs him in the back. And there's like quite a few moments I think during that fight where there's little things here and there where I'm like, oh, there's a little bit more choreography than I'm giving it credit for, but it's so poorly put together. It's so hard to see. It's so poorly put together.
Austin, did you say there was something about the way he drops him off that roof that really bothered you?
Yes, he throws him off the roof in a flat comedy angle. I couldn't believe it. My jaw dropped. I was like, that's seriously how we're going to shoot that? No, just so much of how they shoot the opening I thought was like amateurish at best. I do think that Karen gets one of the better acting moments, though, in that opening, where there's a nice bit where Foggy's dead in front of her, Bullseye lands behind her, and she has like this acting moment where she's like, "Oh God, like it's Matt behind me, I can't look," and that moment's really good, and it's like the only thing.
She really sells that.
That's like the only thing that is selling anything in that sequence.
She's really good, and I like that moment when Matt and Bullseye are up on the roof, and like you can tell Matt's hearing Foggy die, and he like lets out that scream. I thought Charlie Cox played that really well.
He does a good job. I don't like that we cut cut into him screaming. Like I wish we lived with that and like started with it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robert. That was all I was saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, like there are ideas in that sequence on paper that I think are fine, like the through line of him listening to Foggy's heartbeat slow down as he's fighting Bullseye. I like that a lot. And initially, when the whole setup happens, and you're like, "Oh, Foggy, don't be stupid, let Matt go," and then you realize, "Oh no, that was to distract Daredevil while he did this." Like on paper, I think that's fine tension. I'm with you that the direction on the action sequences are really poor and the CGI is really bad. It's a shame too because they actually brought in the same stunt choreographer from the Netflix show, and sometimes that shines through when you can see what's going on. Like that, it was such a mistake.
They also had to borrow the CGI from Daredevil 2003. So,
yeah, it's like
they should have brought in a cinematographer from that show as well.
Yeah. No, like the one of the worst parts for me was just filling the diner with CGI smoke. It looks bad, and you can't see what's going on, and it's like that's the idea. But
that was just not the moment to do the one take fight. I don't think.
Not at all.
No.
I also don't really like that it's just become the thing that it's like we get that show. We know that you got to do the one take fight. It's like, is that all you understood? Like, you could have had so many. Yeah, exactly. And, you go back to some of those Bullseye and Daredevil fights, and you could have had so much more suspense if you were, like, cutting in and, like, really moving with them, especially, with Bullseye, like also killing people in that diner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a bit where he, like, picks up a ball and hits somebody in the face, from a pool table. I didn't even catch that the first time because it's so in the corner. There's all these little bits that happen that the camera's just not focused on.
There's a woman that he stabs in the throat, and I didn't catch until a second viewing that it's because she pulls a gun on him. Like, there's so many just little things in that fight where I'm like, so much of this is like really hard to read on just one viewing. And
I've only seen. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I've only seen season 3 once. Does Bullseye know who Daredevil is? Like,
I
underneath
don't
that?
remember. That I am
I
confused
don't
on.
remember either.
I don't remember offhand, but I don't think so.
Because that
think
was
so.
my
I mean-
big thing with that whole prologue. Is I'm like, okay, I like this in idea, but why is he doing this? Is it because of that client? Is it because he knows who Matt is?
I assume we will get an answer for that later, but at the same time, it goes into that Fisk thing where I'm like, I feel like we should have had that up front.
I'm also
Oh,
worried
that's
about
fair.
how massively convoluted it could be because there's a big rumor going around or a big fan theory, and it's a credible fan theory that Foggy might not actually be dead. And that's because he faked his death in
Brubaker's run.
I couldn't remember where it was, yeah. And apparently whose apartment is it? Is it Matt's apartment?
I think it's the address next to the bar.
It's on Nelson
Foggy says
Murdoch
he
and
puts
Page.
him- Okay.
You're talking
It's
about the
a-
apartment that he has the guy put up in.
No, we're not.
No.
No.
It's in the opening. I guess it's. Is it in the opening or is it?
Yeah, it's next to the Nelson Murdoch and Page sign on the wall.
Anyway,
Oh,
that number is the issue where that happens. And
Yes.
Yeah,
and people think it's a tell that he's not dead. And people think that, but here's what's weird about it. They could reveal that he's somehow still alive, which is convoluted and cheap to me. But if they say he faked his death, I'm gonna be like, no. Like, he was shot because I read an article where it was like, oh yeah, he could be faking his death the same way he did in the comic, where he's got like the pill that makes his heart slow down, and I'm like, no. Like what is he in league with Bullseye? Did they do this together? Or is he like, okay, if ever I'm shot and about to die, I'm gonna pretend like I'm dead first, and then hope I'm magically not dead? Like, how's he faking his death in that situation? No.
The only thing it could be
If
like
you're gonna
that
do
is
that, then you can't shoot that prologue. You need to leave his death ambiguous.
Yeah.
the only
That
thing that it
would've been better.
could be with that is they resuscitate him, I guess, once they pull him up in the ambulance, which would be like way too far after he's dead to do that, but whatever. No, I think that would be incredibly cheap if they bring him back, because it's ultimately just shock value, and I feel like it's a lot worse if...
Well,
go ahead.
Here's what I think what happened though. It's they try to I think the original plan was just Foggy's dead. It happens off screen.
Mhm.
And then they bring in this new showrunner and they try to retool it and bring in the whole cast. So they are stuck salvaging the story they had to begin with. So it's like, okay, we still need to include that.
Mhm.
But I'm guessing this showrunner, if that happens, probably wanted to bring Foggy back.
Mhm.
And I've got a couple of quotes here, if you don't mind me reading them, because I did know about that fan theory. The showrunner said, talking about the Karen and Foggy thing, he said, "There are things to be revealed. Because it is the superhero world, don't count everything out quite yet. There are returns that I think are surprising and inevitable."
Okay, so he's
One
not
there-
dead.
When there's one big tell that we haven't mentioned, which I didn't catch until the second viewing, which is the scene in which he dies. He's talking about how he can hold somebody up and like store them, in like a place. He's like, I got places I can put people in to hide them. And I was like, oh, he's not dead. He's gonna go into hiding. That's exactly what they're doing. Okay.
Well, and there's another quote.
Okay, if you're gonna do that, sorry, let me just say this real quick. If you're gonna do that, then don't replace those characters with a boring supporting cast to then just bring them back later. It's almost like they want to hold them in their back pocket in case people don't like what they're doing, right?
I mean,
it's like
It does kind of feel like if that's what they end up doing, that is what it is.
yeah.
My thing is just if you're gonna do that, then don't show me his death, because I buy that 100 times more if I don't see what happened.
No, and I think that's so bad. I feel like it's worse for me having to sit through it.
Yeah. Well, and another thing we should talk about that makes that theory all the more credible is, according to a couple of people, including one of the producers, who said, I don't think there's a Matt Murdock story without Karen and Foggy. And I'm excited to see them back in season 2, because I will say that Deborah and Eldon will be back in season 2. So, like, it's been confirmed that he's going to be back. Uh,
Weird because there's lots of stories without Karen.
Yeah.
yeah.
What are you talking about?
And Foggy, like the two main runs they're looking at don't regularly feature those characters,
hmm
right?
Yeah. Well,
Foggy's a big part of Miller, but Karen's not. Obviously, until
Mm.
boarding.
Sorry, say that again.
I just said Foggy's a big part of Miller, but Karen's not.
Yeah,
until
but
Born
he's not.
Again.
He's not looking that much at. I'm talking about Soul and Zarsky.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. And I don't. I
Like
haven't
the
read
two
those.
big
Well, there's some
runs
Bendis in
with
here,
story
too.
stuff they're doing so far don't do much with those characters, or at least they're not like the main things. Speaking of that, let me read the super chat real quick. Okay, great, $4.99. He says, thanks for the super chats. Netflix felt very Miller inspired. Born Again feels very Bendis inspired so far. I bet they'll do the Kingpin Caesar betrayal in the finale. Yeah, I mean, I'm really just seeing the story stuff from what I've read of those runs. I'm not noticing a ton of Bendis, but it's been a while since I've read much of that.
Well, I know that is where the White Tiger thing comes
Oh,
from.
now that's right.
Yeah,
No, that's
this whole
true.
White Tiger thing is Bendis.
With Kingpin, though, I'm going to throw out my prediction. I think what they'll do, because in episode 2 they have Muse just not in costume meeting Heather Glenn, and they're clearly trying to link those two characters in our minds. But I think that through her, she will end up killing Vanessa, which is what will set off Kingpin to be evil again. That's my prediction, but we'll see.
Oh.
that
See,
makes
I
sense.
don't think I noticed Muse without the costume. I didn't realize
I didn't either.
Yeah, there's just like a moment where a guy comes up to her at her book signing and is like, "Sign my book," and we hold on him, and I'm like, "That is somebody. That's probably who that is." And then I looked up the actor, and that's who that is.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wouldn't have
I think
even
you're
known
right.
that.
That's what they're setting up. Well, and that makes sense because she is a major member of the previous cast that is not Cox or
That is not
D'Onofrio.
dead.
So she's disposable. And in
And she's
fact,
also added in reshoots.
and in fact, she wasn't even supposed to be in the show because you can't even tell if Kingpin was married in his previous MCU appearances. I don't think. I might be wrong about that.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think they. I think they're very vague about it.
Like I think Hawaiian Kingpin could have been completely single all the way through. Like,
Well, and because they did recast Vanessa originally.
Sorry, I just had this image in my head of Hawaiian Kingpin walking up to Daredevil and being like, Matt, I am like Blue Elvis in the Blue Hawaii movie. I have made another funny Matt. Sorry, that broke me.
it is
Anyways,
not entirely
what were you
unpleasant to see you again, Cowabunga.
saying? It is not entirely unpleasant to say go ninja, go, Matt.
Oh, I need this crossover.
Yes.
I mean, the Miller of it all. Might as well.
Yeah.
This might not be fair. I'm not even necessarily saying this is a problem, but I was a little surprised by it. It's a little odd that just with the tradition of Matt Murdock stories, that you have Matt Murdock's world once again come crumbling down with the death of Foggy and with his hanging up the costume because he almost killed Bullseye. And then 1 year later, he's like in the best place he's ever been in his life. That's very strange. That was one of the big counterintuitive things to me where I was like, everything sucks in Matt Murdock's life. And then 1 year later, and they do like the Endgame thing where it's like 1 year later.
I had the exact same thing.
They do that. And then it's like, well, he's got a new apartment and he's got a firm that's going great and he's got a new girlfriend, and I'm like, wow, things are going great for Matt Murdock right after everything fell. But that's not what you do with Daredevil.
Especially in a thing called Born Again.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, maybe you could do a thing where like he's living a lie, it's all a facade. It just doesn't really feel like that. I don't know. I just feel like there's this lack of a somber haze that would be much more appropriate than what we're getting, and just the atmosphere feels off to me, and it's hard not to go, well, I miss the real stylized atmosphere that we had with the first season of that show. Like, I missed that feeling. It's not inherently wrong to go another way, especially if he's in a different place in his life, but it would be appropriate. Like, something's missing.
Yeah, I don't disagree that somberness should be more at the forefront. I mean, he is in kind of a cynical place in that first episode, and obviously is not happy at all about Fisk becoming mayor. But like the scene in the third episode I liked with White Tiger when he says, "Oh, you're not gonna miss the costume. It's fine." Like he doesn't want him to do it because he's really talking about himself. So there are moments like that worked for me where it's like, okay, clearly he's projecting and has this need that he can't acknowledge. Like, I think that's
good.
fine. But
I'll say overall, I thought the third episode was pretty good until you get to the end.
I thought it was mostly pretty good.
And you can just walk up to a guy with a magic amulet and shoot him in the head. Okay.
Definitely very lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that he initially just takes on this case because that's what he does, but because with the vigilante angle, it's kind of drawing him into, and we talked about earlier, where he just drops that bomb on the jury. I like that was kind of that vigilante mindset of like, I have to do whatever it takes to win, and he doesn't think to talk to the person that he's trying to defend.
Right. I also would have questioned that choice more if he was still Daredevil at this moment.
Yeah.
But because he's not, I can see him justifying it as like, well, I quit, so this guy can quit, so I can out.
And you can tell he's real frustrated not having that as a resource anymore.
Yeah, because one thing that I like the way Charlie plays in the last episode is you get to that start witness, and that's going to be their slam dunk, and then he lies, and immediately you can see that frustration setting in of like, I'm trying to play this by the book, but they keep getting out from ahead of me. I need to do something else, so he immediately takes that underhanded tactic that he might have done as Daredevil, but he's not.
Yeah, well, on the other side isn't playing fair. They're trying to kill his witness.
Yeah.
Those damn Punisher cops. It is a little weird though that
I'm gonna get that tattoo just to piss off Austin.
I'm gonna specifically that logo or just those damn Punisher cops.
No, that logo.
Oh, okay.
No, I advise against it. I advise against it.
Yeah, you should maybe not get that logo.
It's going to associate you with some groups that you don't want to associate with.
Okay.
Like
Man,
those damn Punisher cops.
I'm so not informed that I forgot about that again momentarily.
You should get it tattooed right on your forehead. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. I'll do that. But I mean, I'm not a cop. Like, there's a lot of people with skull tattoos, right? Like,
some in certain groups. Yeah.
Well, no, I know, but like skulls are just a popular tattoo.
It's like a popular tattoo thing. Yeah. No, and I mean, I don't know. That's like the murkiness of it all. Like, I hate even bringing it up because it's like one of my favorite characters, and like it's become political to talk about the Punisher, and I hate that. I hate that so much.
Austin, I totally get where you're coming from. I think for me, it's more of a, okay, if we have to get this out of our system in the season and then just move on and back to doing traditional cool Punisher stuff, cool. Again, it doesn't mean
you can't trust they'll move on.
But I can't trust it, right? Like, I'm just taking this thing as
to see what they're doing with the actual Punisher in relation to this first before I have a fully...
Well, we haven't talked about this. Who is wearing the shirt at the end when White Tiger dies? Because we haven't seen any of the cops wear a blatant Punisher shirt yet. So, like, is the implication supposed to be that for whatever reason the Punisher did that?
Yeah, that's
for a split second.
Yeah, I think,
and I was talking to Austin about this for a split second. I was like, was it the Punisher? Like, are they saying the Punisher came out of retirement to kill this guy?
And I think my response was, no, it's those damn Punisher cops.
Yeah,
no, but they don't show the face because they're trying to make you think, like, oh, is it Frank? But it's definitely those damn Punisher cops.
Also, like, why is one of them so blatant like that? Because, like, they're wearing, tattoos that, like, they're not concealing them all that well, but, like, they're not just blatantly walking around wearing Punisher shirts. Like,
Based on set photos, I know that's coming later.
Oh, okay,
You know,
okay.
I try not to get
Yeah,
too into
Mister
that
trying to
side of
take it on its own terms, but you
Yeah.
know all this crap already.
Yeah, Mister literally knows everything. Already knows that Foggy's back because he's seen 16 set photos of Matt and Foggy kissing in the finale. Come on now, Robert.
So Robert,
the producer
like,
said he'd be back.
you know how you said that there's like different tiers of blindness. There's also different tiers of spoilers. Okay, so like,
Different tiers of
you know,
lioness.
when I said spoilers, I meant for what we've seen, not your friggin' crystal ball. Anyway,
the two tiers of people I hate the most, Robert, are those damn Punisher cops and you.
Tyler says Bullseye doesn't know who Daredevil is, but he had dealings with Nelson and Murdoch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they did call back to season 3 with the Hello Karen thing.
Yeah, I just took it as he was taking revenge on Karen and new Daredevil.
And I haven't seen season 3 since it came out, so I don't remember.
Hayden says, I still haven't finished season 3, but it's kind of funny that everyone else is watching this while I'm watching that, and I'm having more fun.
Yeah, season 3 is great.
True. That is true.
One thing I will say, again, it's a little superficial, but one thing I am kind of appreciating about this is that for the weirdness of how rushed that first episode is notwithstanding, the pacing within a single episode is okay. Like, my issue with season 3 was it felt real decompressed. Like it kind there were sections of that. Yeah, there were sections that felt like they just kind of sat there, and I felt like it could have been 4 episodes shorter, and I would have really appreciated a good episodic Daredevil show. Like, I liked that idea. When they revealed that this was supposed to be originally 18 episodes, I was like, that's kind of cool if it works. And so it's such a hard thing to like wrap my head around and criticize because it sounds like what they were doing with that wasn't the right way to go, and I may not have liked that, but I kind of wish it was episodic.
Can I peer into my crystal ball again for a second without getting
your set photo leaks?
No. Based on things I've heard from reviews from people who have seen the whole season, we're gonna get to a more episodic place. I don't know if that means it'll be good or bad, but I know about one episode in particular that'll be like entirely self-contained, which could be cool.
Yeah, but these things do that.
Like, I hope I like it.
I mean, that's also, Robert, pretty standard. That you'd have like an 8 to 10 episode season, and you've got the 1 or 2 that are kind of like your fill-in issues. We do that. It's not novel or anything.
Oh, sure.
And then there'll be the therapy episode that's the flashback. It'll be the second last episode.
Yeah. Dude, everything is doing that. I just watched this new show. The last episode of the first season just aired last week on Hulu, Paradise. And even Paradise does it, which isn't even like a comic adaptation or anything. It's this like conspiracy sci-fi thriller thing, and second to last episode, and they do a lot of non-linear in that show. There's a lot of flashbacks all the way through it. The entire second to last episode is a flashback. That forms, and like, it's structured well. They did it correctly if you've got to do that, but oh boy, I'm done with it. Like, freaking everything's got to do it.
Well, She-Hulk was gonna do that, but then they just moved that episode to the start and made it the pilot retroactively.
Subverted
our expectations. And then wasn't the second last episode the Daredevil one, or was that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. They were like, that's the only reason most people are watching this, so let's put that as the second episode.
You're not wrong. That's why I kept watching.
One of the reasons, besides going back to Netflix, that they felt the need to basically add a whole new pilot episode was because it came out that we weren't going to see Daredevil in costume until the 4th episode, and people were up in arms about that. And now that we've seen the first 3, Who cares? Right? Because we've had him in costume, because he's not in costume. He gave it up. We've had him in costume one time, and it was rough. And it was the worst thing we've seen so far. Like, maybe he shouldn't have been in costume until the 4th episode. Like,
that was how they made it okay. They were like, we know he's not going to be in costume like till way later on, so let's have the worst possible scene as the opening, so that everyone will be like, oh, let's not get back to that.
There's even moments in that, if I can bring up set photos again. There's a part when he first shows up and he's on like some scaffolding. Like you could they shot that for real, and it looks really cool. But then in the show, they clearly added like a CGI church in the background because it's Daredevil and you gotta have a church. And there's just all this CGI fog and muck added to it. Like it ruins it. So even the stuff that's shot practically like doesn't look good.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
It's also really funny.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it's also really funny because he's like, "Oh, this guy's about to die. I better hurry!" And then he swings, poses, and then jumps away and swings. It's a really awkward moment too.
Okay, so MCU right now, and particularly Disney Plus, but I mean, like, we could even get back into Brave New World and stuff because that looks like a Disney Plus show. All of it. Like, there's not a cinematic moment in that film. Am I being hard on? No, there really isn't. Anyway, is current MCU like lazy and cheap when it comes to effects, or have they been so close to it for so long where they're a machine? This is how they make things that. Like, and when I say they, I mean just the powers that be. You know, Foggy and everybody in charge. Can they not tell the difference anymore? You know, like, do they not know what looks real and what doesn't anymore? Is it like if we can kind of realize it, it's good enough, and like they've got blinders on now? Like when Foggy looks at that opening scene. Like, does he see like crap cheap effects that don't even hold up to like? You know what Mark Steven Johnson did? Or does he go, oh cool, Daredevil's jumping across Bill, everybody's always wanted to see that? Like, I think they could be too close to it.
He's like a 6-year-old watching it, like, oh, Daredevil, he's jumping.
Yeah.
But I think that they've taken on so much, they're releasing so many things a year, that even if they're aware that it looks bad, there's no time to fix it because you've got to get it out the door so that the overworked and underpaid CG artists can start rendering the next thing and get halfway done with that and then start rendering the next thing, and who cares?
Yeah, they're rushing it so hard. Like, they're going, okay, you have to have this done. You have like a week, and then 3 days later, oh, by the way, actually, you need to change it. That's not exactly what we're doing anymore.
Yeah, it's like Brave New World just came out a month ago,
something like that.
And we've already got another thing out the door. Granted, it's TV versus a movie, but like you can have some breathing room between projects.
Yeah. We also have 2 movies and 2 more shows coming out this year.
I mean, John, in their defense with that, Brave New World got pushed back twice. I mean, like, it got pushed back a whole year.
And this got pushed back too. So did this.
Yeah.
Everything they're putting out this year has been pushed back.
Yeah. And haven't you heard, this has the highest ratings on Disney Plus this year. Like, we just got into March. How is that a headline? The best ratings so far on Disney Plus. Meanwhile, you look at how it stacks up against other stuff, and like, it's what was it, Austin? It was like on par with Agatha?
No, it was 2 million less.
Or it was like less than Agatha.
And I've heard people go, well, it's TV mature, so therefore it's fine, but like...
Oh, get out of there with that.
Yeah, you know it's bad when they're pulling out the like hardcore qualifiers of it's the most viewed show on Disney Plus this year.
Also, get out of there with that, because if kids really wanted to watch it, if they really cared about this, and when I say kids, I mean like teenagers, that are underage. You think they wouldn't figure out a way to get a 4-digit code to watch Disney Plus shows? Like, stop it with that. Yeah, I was gonna say that, RJ Godzilla. Like, it's not even doing as well as The Acolyte, and I said, like, a long time ago, this show has to do well for them or they're sunk as far as Disney Plus content goes. Having said that, when I saw the ratings, it kind of I kind of saw things more clearly, and I went, well, now wait a minute, why were we putting all the eggs in the Daredevil basket in the first place? Because you're talking about a thing that's been around a long time now, that had 3 seasons on Netflix, and so there's like a built-in base for it, but especially if you're going to tie it to the old show, there's also prerequisite now, ostensibly. Like now it's a commitment, right? And so that can be a hurdle for people. And if it wasn't related to those shows at all story-wise, it's the same actors. So people would still feel like it was a commitment. People would still feel like they needed to go back and look at that stuff, even if they're told they don't. So was it ever going to be like the thing to save Disney Plus necessarily? I don't know. It's a question. Now, I thought it would do better than it's doing.
Yeah. Viewership, I don't know.
I'm shocked that it's doing so poorly, just because Daredevil is kind of their gold standard for superhero television on Marvel's side. And so I still think this is a show that needed to be better than it is, even though I do like it, just because there is those preconceived expectations, and you risk running out some of the audience that you still have if it's bad.
Yeah. And because I've always said that, where it's like, this is the make or break show for them, but I meant more so like in terms of quality. This is the show that they have to get right, because if they don't, everyone will turn on them. And it hasn't been that. I do feel like there's a lot of giving passes to things, and I'm not trying to be an asshole and saying that's what you guys are doing. I'm just saying, like, in general, I've seen a lot of that, like a lot of like, you can't really criticize it until next season. Like, that's when we'll really get to see what they're doing, and I'm like, no. Like,
yeah, but Austin, also keep in mind that, and I mean, we've got lots of evidence to support what I'm about to say. We've got the Arrowverse, we've got what's happened recently with MCU, where they don't have the clout that they used to. People will turn on it quick if
possibly.
Because the thing is, if it's kind of mediocre right now and people are on a high because, well, it's Daredevil, if it can't even keep to the quality it's got right now, it's not going to take very long to lose people. And the general trajectory of these things is they cannot live up to the first season. Typically the next thing they do is not going to be as good. I'm terrified of that for X-Men 97. Because I loved that show, and I kind of wish it wasn't renewed. Because I don't think they'll be, especially because they lost their showrunner. I don't buy that show will stay great. And I don't think this show is great. And I'm not sure we can be sure that it will stay as good as it even is right now. That's very cynical of me to say. But I'm also just looking at history. That's most shows, even brilliant show. That's most everything.
Yeah.
Every Netflix show that wasn't Daredevil had this, and the second season was a drop-off from the first. But, like, every second season of that show that's not Daredevil was god-awful or close to god-awful. Am I wrong? Punisher was okay. But, like, Jessica Jones Season 2 is one of the worst things I've ever seen. And, I mean, Iron Fist was...
Iron Fist was bad from the start.
I didn't even bother with season 2 of that, and I remember the hot take that Luke Cage season 2 is the most mad I've been at a Netflix season. It was so bad, but Daredevil's like the only one that rode that line well enough. Like, season 2 is a drop off, but like, it's still really good. Like,
Yeah.
Sorry, can I read
currently
this comment?
rewatching-
Can I read this comment? Hayden Spring,
No.
my friend said this show was good, but he's also an idiot, so I don't believe him.
Exactly. Throw a peanut into your friend's throat, like Bullseye.
More peanuts, please.
More peanuts, please.
Yeah, I think I went into this with maybe slightly more optimism than some people did, just because we've kind of been here before with Daredevil, though, because season 2, like you said, what was disappointing, or at least not as good as the first one. For me, it really fell apart at the end, even though I love most of that season. And then Defenders is bad. And I do remember going into Daredevil season 3, a lot of people had written it off, and it had a new showrunner, and people were like, Defenders sucked, I don't care anymore.
And it was an Arrow showrunner, too.
Yeah, there were a lot of red flags that are easier to forget about now. But then season 3 was great, and the big luxury it had over this, even though granted that season did start a lot better than this started, is that did have the luxury of being a binge show, so we got to have the whole piece at once. This is awkward and different, just living with it week to week and not being sure where it's going. Again, that's not me making excuses for the show. I'm just saying it's a different viewing
Robert, you
situation.
shill. How much did they pay you?
Well, again, keep in mind, I
Disney
mean, I've
paying
been
me to
pretty
say nice
critical.
things about their show.
I'm sorry, John, what was that?
So I wish Disney was paying me to say nice things about their show. Are you kidding
Me too.
I've been pretty critical of this. I did flip green, but like I said, it's hard not to just look at it in comparison to everything else we've had lately. Like the bar is really low, and it's watchable. For me, it's not to Austin. Austin is acting like he's got to take a cold shower after every episode. But
Well, and a big thing too, and I think I mentioned this with one of the other shows we did. I can't remember, one of the other Disney Plus shows. It just kind of adds onto the pile where it's like, oh well, like I don't think the first few episodes are great. I've been around the block with you, Disney Plus, at this point. I have no reason to trust that you will get any better. I have more evidence that you're going to get worse with how your other shows get.
name one Disney Plus show that you've seen, because obviously I've not seen all of them, and I mean Disney Plus, not just Marvel, like Star Wars, whatever. Name one show that starts rocky for a couple, 3-4 episodes, and then shockingly gets great after that. Name one. It's never happened.
The closest I could say, and I can't speak for everyone here, I would say Andor.
I didn't see that.
I loved it.
But I heard that show
the first
just
few episodes
started
were the weakest.
slow, not bad.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it does not start bad. It's just it starts kind of slow. Not everyone can get into it, which is understandable.
Well,
but
it's
that's a show.
thing.
Yeah, and it gets better as it goes, and most people agree that stuck the landing. But that's the
Is that
closest
the
one.
obligatory Andor reference?
Of course.
Okay, Rob Liefeld.
Hey, look! He's a shill, and Andor season 2 is coming out, so he's got to name drop it. See,
Exactly.
It's the only thing I
starting.
covered.
It started as this show. It's starting as this show is ending. Robert is making sure we're watching the next show on Disney Plus.
Austin, you want to watch Andor?
No, Rob Liefeld, I do not want to watch Andor.
now I will eventually watch that. I've been curious about it, but
no, so
I won't make
that was the
you
other
Austin
thing.
unless you piss me off.
Okay.
Then I will. Then I'll make you watch Andor.
I love that you're threatening him with Andor.
There are worse things you could threaten.
No, I'm doing that because Austin has this whole like I'm done with Star Wars thing, and I sometimes like to make fun of him for just how done with Star Wars he is.
Not Andor, no.
Somebody request Andor, so Austin has to watch it.
Yeah.
Next blind commentary stream, Ahsoka.
Oh God. Oh God, don't make me. You can't do it.
That's a better thing to threaten them with.
Look,
That's an actual threat.
Look, we may not get Night Nurse in this, so we gotta make up for it by watching Ahsoka.
True. No, that's my other thing with this as well. Is this was entirely? I'm trying to think of the word. I don't know. I'm blanking now. But I didn't have the Robert thing. Not that I was coming into this thinking it would be bad. Like, I kind of didn't really need this either way, so I was like fully prepared for it to win me over if it was good. Because season 3, I think, has enough of an ending that I'm like, it's fine. Like, that show ended. It was good. I
I
liked
thought so
it.
too.
So this didn't really have that, like, oh, I need it to be great, or, like, I'm worried they're going to ruin it. I don't like this show. It impacts that original show in no way for me. Like, it is easy to just wipe away in my head. That show ended. It's fine.
That is kind of the nice thing, is like, even though I am liking this show, and I do think so far, like, because I'm watching season 2 with my friend right now, but I like episode 2 and 3 of this more than I do like the back half of season 2 of the original show. But like, if this turns, out to be like every other Disney Plus show, it won't affect seasons 1 and 3 of that original show for me. Mm-hmm. Well, in the first half of season 2, because that Punisher stuff is great.
Well, and something we haven't talked about is just wait, because now that they're connecting it to the old stuff, they are inevitably going to start bringing in lore that didn't work the first time, and they've talked about it. Like, they've talked about bringing back the hand. They've talked about bringing back Elektra, and they're going to. They're gonna, and that's when they'll lose everybody.
Wait.
I'm fine with bringing back Elektra, just because I think there's enough of a clean slate there. You can just have her be an assassin and just do something new with that character. I think that character is kind of salvageable. You just don't need to dwell on what came before. But the hand stuff, no, please don't. I don't need more hand in this series.
No, and I like that actress as Elektra. The biggest issue with season 2 is really just it has to play as an advertisement for Defenders. Like, it sets up so much stuff with the hand that it can't pay off, and you don't realize it in the moment. But when you get to the end, it's like, oh, that's it. Like, I remember watching it at the time, being like, what the hell was that? There was the big hole in New York. Like, that never came back. What was that? And then Defenders showed up, and it was like, oh, it was entirely just advertising this. Like, it's got that Iron Man 2 thing.
Oh, this is going to sound dirty, but speaking of giant holes, can you believe that Wilson Fisk gets out of a car and he goes, you don't need paperwork. You just consider the permits filed. And I'm like, that's not how that works.
I can't even believe that Wilson Fisk got out of a car.
The mayor can't just go, I've decided this hole should be filled. So there we go. I'm doing all the good work now. And then he looks at his assistant and he's like, is this what you were talking about? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, no, it wasn't.
Vanessa, I'm in this car and I can't get up. Call Lifeline.
But Austin, tell me you were shaking your head at that.
I don't know. It didn't really jump out to me. There's so many just weird dialogue moments. I can't remember all of them.
That just felt really cartoony to me. That's the thing, is there are places where this show thinks it's smarter than it is, and that's where it's getting into kind of the Falcon Winter Soldier place, and it's making me twitch a little bit because I can just see how bad that could possibly get. And again, I think there's potential it could be fine. I don't see the show ever being great.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, at this point I've just settled for I just want something that's watchable.
But we're also walking that weird tightrope now that we are tied more to the MCU, where it's like, well, but this is such a weird, cartoony, insane world that isn't reality anymore and makes no sense. So it can be easy to hand wave that stuff, but like you said, like, does the show think it's smarter than it actually is? Yeah, so that is still a problem. But I can't get hung up on stuff like that because I'm like, this world doesn't make any sense anymore anyway. I don't know what would fly or what a mayor can or can't do after the blip happens. I don't know.
All I know is that in 2 months, the Sentry is going to obliterate everyone in this show, and he will be correct for doing so.
I just remember this. Another phrase. I wish I'd written more of them down. Another phrase that Wilson Fisk uses that I just don't buy coming out of his mouth is "not for nothing." Not for nothing. It's like, yeah, that's
one
the
of the
thing.
ones
That's the thing Wilson Fisk says. Okay, not for nothing.
One of the weird like direction things that I have. This is with Cox, not D'Onofrio. I don't even remember what the line is, but I think he's talking about. It's when he's talking to Cherry in the law firm. I don't remember what the line is exactly, but he says the word "up" and he like holds the P where he goes up, and I'm like, why did Matt say that? That's really weird.
Yeah, I caught that too.
Yeah, it was like, why?
Wait,
It's very strange.
he says maybe I'm just wisening up.
Oh, that's what it is. But he's like, maybe I'm just wising up. I'm like, why didn't you say
John
that?
Kelling, is BB
So weird.
Is BB gonna reveal she knows Fisk murdered her uncle or what? Again, we're speculating as to whether she's investigating that or like definitely knows it. That could be going somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know.
Emotional reveal.
Yeah, I don't know if she knows that or not. Like, if she's been told that by her family, like, hey, this is probably who killed him. But yeah, I can at least trust that that's going somewhere. I'm not saying they're going to handle it well, but I'm sure that's going to go somewhere.
We found his fingerprints in his throat.
Well, and
In
it's
his
been,
throat.
it's
What? Well, wasn't it a strangulation?
yeah, but you said in.
Yeah, in his throat, like in his throat.
In.
Yeah. Well, it was embedded, like it was real deep in there,
It's been
in his throat.
It's all up in there.
it's been.
But I stand by this.
It's been so long. Would that be public knowledge?
I stand by my prepositional phrase.
Urich?
Yeah, I wasn't sure
I
if
can't remember. It's been too long.
I wasn't sure if it was public
I don't
knowledge
know.
or not. Yeah, do any of you guys buy that he gets the kind of votes that he gets as a convicted felon like that? And it's
No,
like-
they need to explain that.
I just think, yeah.
Yeah. I
No,
agree. They
and-
should have spent more time on setup.
Not to get political, but like I've seen people try to hand wave it by being like politics, and my response is okay, but it's not the kingpin of crime. Like it's a completely different thing. No, they really needed to address that.
It's kind of different when he's just a straight up convicted murderer.
Especially when he's been taken down twice at this point
Yeah.
and ran all of crime.
And like, yeah, the comics did it too. I mean, I didn't read the stuff where he
Mhm.
actually got elected. I don't know how viable it was there either, but
No, of course, and
like we did this with Lex Luthor as the president. Like there's a lot of precedent for this.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
in
But, like,
the
even
context
if
of
it-
what I was watching, I was not buying 53% there.
Yeah, I know exactly.
This
No,
is why we need more street level stuff, because it seems like one of the major reasons he won is his stance on like street level vigilantes. So like, what has Spider-Man been doing? What has the White Tiger been doing? Like, someone had to have done something that has made people not trust these street level heroes anymore.
Yeah, because he's making that his main platform. I can't even tell if that's why he got elected.
Mhm.
no, the most we
He
get
keeps
is
talking about it, but that's kind of all I got.
Daniel being like, "Oh, people are sharing memes of you, Kingpin. They think it's so cool."
Austin.
And
That's not his name.
what?
That's not his name. His name is Daniel.
Oh, Daniel. Tell me about the memes, Daniel.
Why does he want that kid? It's like, I'm very impressed with your enthusiasm.
I like the way you bring MCU life, Daniel. Tell me more about the memes.
I would think that kid would just irritate him. I seriously have expected him to just murder that kid, and instead he just took him with him everywhere.
Daniel, I made a meme. Cowabunga, Daniel. Yeah, I don't know. He showed up in like one scene in that first episode, and I was like, uh-oh. Because his scene was so bad, and I'd already seen interviews with the showrunner being like, oh, he's like the new Wesley. He's like hanging out Fisk the whole time, and I'm
What?
like, what are
No,
we doing?
don't say that. Don't say
Yeah,
that.
don't say that. Don't think it. Don't
We got
say
a
it.
new Wesley. We got a new Urich.
And they're both like hip talking young folk that
And have
are
a scene together. I just
term
think
LOL so amusing.
I just think the Urich thing could be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't as irritated with the new with her as Austin was for that one scene. I gotta see where it goes.
Yeah, same.
Well, with her too, it's also I don't like how they're doing the BB report thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And I don't know, you got me off to the wrong foot when you say like friends with political benefits. I can't deal with it.
Is that the girl, Daniel, that you are friend political benefits of?
Yeah. Well, I get that Daniel's supposed to be like his young protege or whatever he's gonna mold, but like that comment from that short order is so weird because I thought like the vaguely British guy, whatever I thought he was our new Wesley. Like, what's his deal? How long has Fisk known that guy? You know, like there's so many people in his inner circle that Daniel's a weird one just to say, oh, he's the new Wesley.
You're
Yeah,
Like,
just
what
that
does that even
woman
mean?
that reports to him.
Yeah, she seems the most
That's
like
what I
the
was
new
gonna say.
Wesley.
He's got an assistant lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she doesn't know memes like Daniel does.
That's true.
I mean, like everyone that Fisk surrounds himself with are friends with political benefits.
Well, and it's interesting because the lady that is like advising him, he doesn't seem to like to listen to her because she's advising him very traditional, stereotypical what you see in all the shows, and he doesn't want to do that. So maybe there's something there's like he's kind of stepping into a role that he's not ready for or prepared for.
Yeah, and he's bored with all the mayoral, boring stuff. Do you like the part where he sits at his desk and he gets really preoccupied by the desk and he's like, "How old do you think this desk is?"
Vanessa would have known the exact age of this desk, but she's cheating on me with Adam Warlock.
Also, I'm going to say this earlier. I do appreciate that they're bringing up his father and his political aspirations, and that Fisk,
I like that bit too.
Fisk got what his father was after, and that whole thing seems consistent. It's like they're kind of cherry picking the things that they want to really keep track of from the old show. The whole thing about how he didn't respect anyone except for that one mayor.
And that's kind of why I'm not irritated with his new assistant yet. That's supposed to be like the new Wesley. Maybe I'm giving them too much, leeway with all this. But I feel like Fisk is making all the wrong choices, and the show is aware of that, at least to some degree. So I'm curious to see where that goes. But yeah, I think it's very clear that like he should be listening to this person, but he's listening to this person instead because he's just bored with politics and like he doesn't actually. This isn't what he thought it would be.
Well, and one
it's
thing
also convenient that Matt is dating the woman that will be Fisk's therapist. That's very convenient.
It is, unless it isn't. Like, I don't know if he knew that.
They could be doing
I don't
something
know.
with that. Like, that feels intentional. If that's just a coincidence, I will call foul. But it feels like there could be something else there.
Mm-hmm.
What
because he said is
that he's going to her because she's dating Matt. Like to keep.
Yeah, like he could have picked her specifically for her connection to Matt, or she could have. Or something else could have happened, but I feel like
I'll be surprised.
That can't just be a coincidence.
If it's a coincidence, that sucks. It's also just hard to read because it's really hard to track their relationship because it's just I don't know, they're dating now, I guess.
Yeah.
So like just everything with that, it's just awkward.
Oh, I predict that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I predict the show is going to get to a place with her where she's like more on the Team Fisk side and could become someone really annoying and hateable. Like, I totally think we could go
Or
there.
she'll also get killed by Muse.
Or get killed. One of those two is going to happen with Heather.
The problem is the showrunner and people involved in the show have been talking about this as like Matt's first like real
relationship.
committed relationship or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So like they seem to.
His first one?
I don't know what
Okay.
they're talking about.
Well, we never, but in the Netflix show, to be fair, we never got to see him date anyone that long term. The closest we got was Elektra, just because they had the college backstory. But like, we never really saw we saw him flirt with Claire, but that didn't go anywhere. Him and Karen kissed and got close to dating, but that never happened. Like, he never really had a big love interest.
Yeah, all I'm saying is
Elektra.
they're talking about it like a relationship we're supposed to be invested in.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, but season one of that show also establishes that like he's had a few relationships, even if they're not long term.
Yeah, but they.
I resist the idea that this is his first.
Yeah.
Like serious relationship, even if it's on screen.
I don't know.
But I need this one to be on screen. We're not doing
this one to just end.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I don't care. Okay, we are past 2 hours. Actually, well past that. And this is just supposed to be a sign flip. So, well, I mean, you know, with a little spoiler talk. Any last thoughts before we adjourn tonight? I don't know for sure if we're gonna do a full season overview on this one. We'll just see how many of us write it out all the way and want to talk about it when it's finished. I don't want to promise that in case it falls off a cliff and we just don't want to, you know, come back and talk about it. So we'll see. I'm not going to promise that, but
yeah, I mean, at least for right now, I'm going to keep watching. But I don't feel invested enough to keep watching if it gets really bad. Like, I will drop it if I'm not enjoying it anymore. But so far, it's decent. The only other thing I want to mention is the theme. I don't like the new theme.
I'm glad you said that. I don't like it either. And there's a there's a pretentiousness to it that bugs me. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but what it's doing is so that's the composers. I forget their names. The something brothers that did
Newton Brothers.
Newton Brothers, yeah, that did X-Men '97, and they come in, and for the first like third to half of the intro, they have like their own theme. And then it turns into the Netflix theme, but they don't like half notes anymore. So like they just keep cutting out the drawn out notes at the ends of phrases, and it's awkward sounding. It doesn't work. It's like da na da na, like they just won't let anything draw out. And then I was listening close to the score in the third episode, and I noticed that their theme is everywhere, but the Netflix theme isn't. And that's just pretentious to me. I don't know.
I'm glad that you brought that up, John, because I also, not just the intro, I also don't really like the music in the show. Both the score and like incidental music, when we play actual music, I think both have been pretty bad so far.
It gets really over the top.
I don't like the incidental music, especially in the second episode.
The incidental music is a problem. But even some of the regular score is just like...
That's what I'm saying, like both.
Overdone.
I think both are really bad.
Yeah, I'm the odd one out here. I think the score is fine. I haven't had a problem with it.
Yeah, that's fine. Every now and then it jumps out to me where I'm like, I'm not digging this.
Yeah, I didn't really notice the actual score in the show. Like, I'd have to be listening to it. It's just the main theme stuck out because I was like, oh, I really like the
I think it helps because I've been reading a lot of Daredevil, so I've been listening to those scores for the original show, and so I have more opinions on them. Watching it, like it's jumping out at me a little bit more than it typically does with this kind of stuff. But yeah.
Well, sometimes it's just unintentionally silly, Austin. Like you get with the incidental music, like you get to the end of the second episode, and Matt Murdock takes out those guys in that apartment, and then he's screaming, and "I'm gonna get free! I'm gonna get
free!"
What?
I didn't like that at all.
What?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that was a choice.
Both the second and third episode for me were like, oh, I think this is the best one so far, and then I think they dropped the ball at the ending, and then I'm not sure where I stand on it. That's happened twice in a row for me now.
Also, with the intro, I just want to take out the music and replace it with the "No Time to Die" theme because it's like all I can think of every time I see it.
That's hilarious.
I do really like the visuals in the intro. I don't like the new score, the new theme.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's pretty weird to have. I know I sort of made this point, but it's pretty weird to have like everything, all the major symbols in Matt Murdock's life crumbling apart, and then he's in like the best place he's been in a long time.
Because you see that part, there is no time to die.
We'll see all those
born again.
fell apart, and then he was born again off screen, and now he's fine.
Exactly. He started from the bottom, and now he's here.
Bag is suddenly here. He says, "I honestly think this plays better if you pretend it's just a reboot." Like I don't. He says, or especially if you simply never saw the Netflix show. One, no expectations, and two, my main issues are how continuity is handled. Yeah, but it's also hinging too much on continuity and nostalgia. So
I don't
Matt
think
and Fisk have too much history together that they talk about to pretend that the Netflix show.
And what are you latching onto if you don't know anything about this?
Exactly.
Like, your first scene is people you don't know being like ridden off to then go into a bunch of new people that you don't know. Like, what is it that you're latching onto if this
and what
is
you're,
your jumping point?
And sure, like you wouldn't realize maybe that what you're watching is a lesser version of a better thing, but then somebody should just tell you to go watch that other thing. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this show does have its defenders. I mean, I like it okay, and there are, like Austin mentioned,
Daredevil.
Yeah, and like
the other three aren't there yet.
Yeah, but you know, there are people like, yeah, this show's great, but I think the vast majority
that was the joke I was gonna make. You stole my joke.
I was like, I can't tell if that went over.
It doesn't have the defenders. It only has one defender. It's only got one defender so far.
In season 2. They're coming in season 2. It's fine.
I was so sad. You got me by 2 seconds. I was so sad. I was like, I'm right there with it. I was just about to say it, and then you were like, and I love how nonchalant you were about it too. You were like,
that's why I was like, I can't tell if that flew past Robert, if he was just like
totally
you.
I couldn't entirely hear what you said. That was the problem. So I was like, oh, there's a joke somewhere.
Yeah,
it's
only got one defender. The other defender's not there yet.
Only Cap heard.
It's so good. And I probably only noticed it because I was about to say it. I'm sorry, Robert. Go ahead, buddy.
No, like Austin said, there are the people like, yay, Marvel's back, the show's great, but to your point, Cap, I mean, people will turn on this pretty quick if it doesn't come together. But I also think the vast majority of people who are liking the show would also say, in recommending it, well, watch the Netflix one first. Mm-hmm. I've heard a couple of people say, oh yeah, you could just jump into this, and I don't believe them. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm not even saying that it has to be like that, because if it was great and required the first 3 seasons, it's basically just a late season 4. But it doesn't have what X-Men 97 did.
Right.
Which is that show, like a bunch of people watched that either never saw the 90s show or haven't seen it in a really long time, and it worked impressively well on both levels.
Oh yeah,
this does not have that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you think it ought to or not, it just doesn't.
I want to take somebody though now that has never seen the first 3, and then just gaslight them into thinking that certain things in the show that it just hopes you accept into thinking that they were things like, oh yeah, Adam's like one of the main characters of like the first 3 seasons. Like that's like a huge part of it.
The last thing I want to talk about, kind of a positive, kind of negative, that Cap and Austin seem to really not be liking the atmosphere of the show. Which I get. Our friend Noah said something I totally agree with, where he said the show simultaneously looks better and worse than the Netflix show. And I agree. It's like you can see more of the money on screen. And to its credit, I think this is a big step up from a lot of recent MCU projects where the whole thing isn't shot on a green screen. We are in real sets, real locations, there are real extras, and sometimes decent blocking and camera work.
Yay, bare minimum. Yay,
bare minimum. Yeah, I think the show looks good sometimes. But also you get stuff like that opening fight scene that has so much awful CGI and is done so poorly that visually it's just kind of a mixed bag. And it is missing that grit in texture that the Netflix
I still
one
think there's a
had,
lot of
you know,
style
and it's
to
not so
it.
much style. No, there's
Again,
not.
they should have hired one of the cinematographers from the Netflix show. They should
I
have at least
agree.
hired a cinematographer, and I'm not sure they have one. So
Hey
I was
now.
just about to make that.
A, you're an all-star, but B, the ending of that first episode was like screaming cinematography when Matt was standing there with the red light flashing on him, and Fisk was standing there with the white light shining on him as they're looking down and up at each other. It's beautiful cinematography, Cap. I don't know what you're talking about.
well, I don't know. Maybe it'll work on me better on a second viewing. RJ Godzilla. I wasn't really a fan. I want to read this real quick. I wasn't really a fan of X-Men 97. Some things were good, but it just didn't fit the previous seasons at all. The difference for me is, and I'm rusty enough on that show that some of the continuity mistakes kind of went over my head. The difference for me is all the problems with this show aren't just it doesn't fit the previous show. It's not just continuity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I thought this was, as well written and captivating as I felt like X-Men '97 was for the most part, then I could look past that stuff. But I notice it more because, like somebody a minute ago said, this show in the comments, I forget who, doesn't work, like isn't good even if you haven't seen the other 3 seasons, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was also RJ Godzilla.
Oh yeah, there
like
it is.
said,
It's right on top of that. Sorry.
They were right next to each other.
How embarrassing.
What are you, blind?
and like I said, I am coming out of this a bit more positive than Austin is. I will keep watching.
I
But
mean, you can say that about all 3 of you.
But the first couple episodes, it's like even though there
None of the
are
rest of us
pieces
called
I
it
like,
a dumpster fire, which is essentially what Austin said.
Hey,
So
I did not use those exact
No.
words.
no, I said basically. Basically
okay,
what you
fair
said. Yeah. Pick a different kind of fire. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Robert.
No, there are just scenes like bits out of context that I think played totally fine, that are done well. It's just as a whole, it's just kind of clunky and awkward and rigid. It doesn't have, because I did rewatch the first few episodes of the Netflix show, and that pilot's just so good, and it's so deliberately paced and assured and slow, but in a good way. Everything that needs to be there is there. It's paced well. It's just perfect. And then you compare that to these first few episodes, and they're just so rigid and anxious and awkward. Like, we got to do this, but we also got to do this. We got to set this up, but also address this. And it's just, it doesn't have that assuredness and that confidence yet that the Netflix one did. It still feels like it's finding its footing. Is how I feel about it so
No,
far.
if you're not hooked by the end of episode 2 in the original show, it's just not a show.
I agree. Yeah,
Like you're probably just not.
it's unlikely to win you over.
Exactly. Like it's.
That was my wife.
It knows exactly what it is from the get go.
Sarah couldn't get into it. She was like,
You
I don't
should
care
show
that much
her
about
this.
Daredevil.
And then say, "Oh yeah, Adam was really important."
For me, this show just has a severe lack of purple accent lights, and that's really my biggest issue. Is there's no purple lights anywhere. Where is that?
There's like 3 scenes that have some of the Netflix lighting. Because I do agree with what you said, Robert. I do think this show both looks more expensive and cheaper than the original show. I do think that is true. But even some of the cheapness comes down to it being more expensive, clearly. Like,
Right.
With all the CG stuff, for example, like the Netflix show, I don't even think had the money to do that. Like, I remember the end of season 2 when the big, like, holy crap, can you believe this moment is Daredevil swinging off a roof? And I was like, oh, the show can't afford to do that, can it? Like, this is like the money shot. So like that is definitely a part of it too. It's like they have the money to do that, so it doesn't have that art through adversity thing either, where it's
Good call.
it's not pushing every single penny it has to make it look as good as that original show did, because it knows it's got like a crap ton of money.
My studio background behind me looks more like that original show than the show.
Well, no, that's more like Jessica Jones with the purple.
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but his apartment
change
had
it
a
to
lot of
yellow and red. And
purple. His apartment had a lot of purple though.
yeah, I guess that's true.
Or was it?
I just think
reddish?
of Jessica Jones as because like each of those shows had like a specific color.
Yeah, that's true. Was Luke Cage kind of yellow?
Mhm.
That was more so the yellow one, yeah. Then Iron Fist was green for bile.
Are you guys going to wrap up, or any other last minute thoughts?
Go ahead, Robert. Go ahead.
Oh, because those will be real quick. Yeah, this is the 13th Disney Plus MCU show, if you can believe it. So that just shows how many of these things they've made in the last 5 years. I guess it's one of the best so far. See how I feel by the end of the season. But yeah, those are my closing thoughts.
If
I will keep watching.
If you guys do a full season review, I promise that I will show up to be killed off in the first 3 minutes, and then you guys can talk about the rest of the show.
I was going to say you're not.
No, you got to be there to watch all of it.
You're not going to keep up with it, are you?
No, I'm out. This is it for me. But I'm glad we had this conversation. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate you. And sorry last night didn't work out, but I'm actually glad that we did it now and had that third episode to talk about.
I am too, because my review, if I'd just been the first 2 episodes, is like, yeah, the first one's okay, the second one's better, but now I feel like maybe it's getting a little more consistent. Like, I think 2 and 3 are about equal for me.
Yeah, and something else we didn't really talk about is it is nice to see as much courtroom stuff as we've had so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know anything about like actual courtroom stuff, but it was fine. Like, I believed it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of courtroom drama stuff, and I don't personally care if it's super realistic or not. So
Yeah, this
that
wasn't.
stuff doesn't
But
usually
whatever.
bother me.
Yeah, it's not like at all, but also like the last stuff in the original show is not great either.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Like it's fine, whatever.
No, I did want to mention that earlier, just comparing like some of the season 2 stuff with the Punisher, like that some like courtroom stuff was really goofy. So I don't. It's fair to say, oh, that show was brilliant and perfect, and here's how this show was. Like there are things I don't think Netflix always did perfectly.
No, and that was one thing I always wanted it to do was, go like, okay, here's like a case that man has to take on. Here's, like just kind of more of that. It's like I said, monkey's paw for me, where it's like some of the things that I really wanted in that show, they are doing.
You just don't like how they're doing them.
Yeah. And that is the best episode so far. Sorry, Robert.
No, that's fine. The last thing is just, I just am looking forward to maybe in season 2 getting to that Daredevil status quo of Matt Murdock, lawyer by day, vigilante by night. That thing we haven't done since season 2 of the Netflix show. It's been almost 10 years, but we'll get there.
He'll do it in the last 5 minutes.
Right after this episode.
They'll do it in the last 5 minutes of the season, and then they'll shake it up again in the second season, and he'll be like lost in the desert or something. And yeah, it's weird, Austin. The main thing this has got me in the mood for is the movie.
I actually have also, because I've been reading so much Daredevil. I'm like, I should rewatch that.
Yeah.
I
also
also kind of want to watch the movie because I've never seen the director's cut.
Ooh,
oh man,
you should
watch it. Yeah,
man, you've never seen Coolio ramble on about buckshot. You got to do that.
You've never seen their version of Karen Page.
That's true. I haven't.
You've never heard Bullseye's line about wanting an effing costume.
That's true.
Exactly.
All you've seen so far from Karen Page is +1. Because that's all she says in the theatrical version.
All she does, yeah.
Yeah, I've only ever seen the theatrical cut, and I watched that a lot as a kid.
Wow. So that movie is suddenly going to make sense. And you're going to be like, wait, what happened? Why were all these scenes out of order? Because they were.
I should see if I could find that somewhere.
But it does not pass
Robert,
the
is that a
electric.
Blu-ray?
Yeah, I got the Blu-ray for like $10. That's probably the best way to go. Because for some reason, I don't know if you know this, Cap. If you want to stream this movie on Disney Plus, they only have the theatrical cut right now.
Oh, that
they do
doesn't
not
surprise
have the
me at all.
director's cut.
I don't think the director's cut has
Obnoxious.
ever streamed anywhere.
director's cuts and streaming in general are like really hit or miss. Like obviously you have stuff like, you know, like Blade Runner where the final cut's kind of the only version that gets, you know, put around, but like for most things, like
That's
it'll
why
be
I'm
theatrical.
shocked that Max has the Watchmen Ultimate cut right now, because that never streamed for the longest time.
Yeah.
You get the director's cut because the theatrical version is so cut down that's not even really a proper cut. But I just thought that was nuts.
Do you know what's also on Max right now that keeps getting recommended to me?
What's that?
The extended cut of X-Men Origins Wolverine that I never heard existed
What?
and is the same length as the theatrical cut, so I have no idea what's different about it unless I just watch it. It's so weird.
I tell you what,
versions of it
Robert,
on Max.
I'm
They're
gonna
the
let
same
you
length.
fall on your sword on that. You let me know, okay? How about
I'll get
that?
back to you.
That sounds like some intern messed up when inputting that.
Yeah, I don't think there is such a thing.
Or like the post-credit
so
scenes different? That's my only guess.
I looked it up. There is an extended cut that's about 12 minutes longer, and
So it's a
contains
whole other
new
cut.
scenes, including. Wait a minute. What?
This has gone off the rails.
Wait a minute, this isn't X-Men Origins Wolverine. This is
Well, it says
Watchmen
that
I'm
it's 12
reading
minutes. It says it's 12 minutes longer. It includes several new scenes, including expanded ninja action. I don't remember there being ninjas in
Are you
that.
looking at the right
That's the
Wolverine?
Wolverine. Yeah, that's the Wolverine.
It says, "What is the difference between X-Men Origins Wolverine Extended Edition?"
Are you on Google? Is it the Google
Is that
AI?
just AI
Thanks,
crap?
Google AI.
Hey, John, stop wasting
a
my
minute.
time.
No, so it linked me to
I'm
an
going to
Amazon
ask the
review
church.
that's talking about it, and it's talking about.
So it's just
X-Men
some
Origins
dummy on Amazon?
Tyler Isaiah says Max also has an extended cut of Green Lantern. What is going on?
I knew there was.
What the hell is going on?
Okay, I'll look into this later. But I love the idea that it's the same length, but it's called an extended cut. That's amazing. I hope that's true.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I am seeing. There's different cuts of that movie on.
Okay.
But are they just other reviews on Amazon?
Yeah,
No,
what's
this
your
is from IMDb.
source?
Like I thought you were looking like Wikipedia, and then you're like, no, this review.
Okay,
on
this one's from
Amazon.
IMDb. Is that better?
No, anyone can edit that. I mean, anyone
Anyone
can
can
edit
edit Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
Shut up, Austin.
My only guess with the Wolverine thing is
Anyone
maybe
can edit
each
that.
cut has. My only guess is maybe each cut has a different post-credit scene. Because do you guys remember that there were two different
That could
post-credit
be
scenes? I've only ever seen the Deadpool one. I've never seen the post-credit scene of him in the bar. I've just heard about it.
Yeah, I
so
just heard
maybe
about that.
that's it.
And it's the
Okay,
exact
great.
same length as the
Okay,
Deadpool
great says
scene.
they added more scenes talking about the moon god. Oh, we better
But then
hurry
they-
up and watch that.
But then they cut some other scenes. And then they threw in some ninjas in the middle.
Good news, you can buy the extended version on Blu-ray for $16.
You know, I always thought what
Not.
X-Men Origins needed more of was ninja fighting.
What, you get to see all of the wars that they fought in, like the Civil War, World War
All
One,
of
Vietnam, the Great Ninja Wars. You know, all the classics, really.
The Great Canadian Standoff. You know,
He's
just all
like-
these...
He breaks out of Weapon X, and then they're like, Stryker, what are we gonna do? Don't worry, I'll deploy my ninjas. And ninjas drop down from the ceiling. They will remove his memory with their ninja abilities.
The
You sound like a
his
Power Rangers
memories won't
announcer.
grow back after they get a sword after he gets a sword in his brain.
After they get punched by an adamantium ninja.
Okay, let's
Why were we put here? Just a stuffer.
let's take this to a close, shall we? Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Austin and I will be back with you for more stuff later this week. And John, we really appreciate you being here, and Robert, we appreciate you as well, buddy.
Thank you.
I had fun.
You guys come back soon. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan. Once again, we had Austin, we had Robert, we had John. See you later, folks.
So, yeah.
Good night, everybody. Watch out for those ninjas in
Yeah, there's
movies
a
that
whole,
don't have them.
whole bunch of ninjas hidden in this call, too.
I need there to be an entire cut subplot from X-Men Origins Wolverine with ninjas.
Ninja cut.
Bye, everybody.